2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We're a moment or two late. We've got a good attendance, and Emily's bringing our sign-up sheets forward as we speak. We do not have the minutes to get approved today, Commissioners, so the first item on the agenda will be the continuation of ZC 1904. Yeah, for sure. We had the public hearing on this at the last meeting, and so there won't be a public hearing on this item. But this was held over for another month to give the developer a chance to meet with the community. This is an item that we will simply make a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will make the ultimate decision on a zoning, as they do on any zoning, since that actually becomes a law/ordinance. The next item on the agenda, SD 1912, does couple along with this. There will be a public hearing on SD 1912. That's the actual subdivision that has to do with the zoning. And I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that would basically be if the zoning would be approved, correct?
That's correct. The approval would be contingent upon the rezoning by the City Council.
Right. Okay. So with no further ado, would the engineer like to come up? Do you have anything to add that we didn't discuss in the last meeting?
Scott Hutchinson with HMR. I'll just answer any questions that you have about the meeting that we had. At the last meeting, you tabled it, and we agreed to have a public involvement meeting on the rezoning, which we had real good attendance at the meeting, and a lot of good comments, a lot of good questions. And I think the main thing that was accomplished was we opened a dialogue between us and the residents around the development, and where we could pass along comments and questions and desires to the developer, and have them consider different things. I don't know if you received an email. We didn't have your direct email addresses, but we sent it to the city with a list of people in attendance and their contact info, and then I gave a little summary of some things that were requested during the meeting. It's not all encompassing by any means, but it was some suggestions that we forwarded to the developer, our client, for their consideration. And did any of you receive those?
You do have a hard copy at your.
Okay. And by the way, there were two commissioners at that meeting. So.
Yes. Ms. Clarice and Art were there.
If you're just taking a question, I've got one question. Is the intent for this 99.15 acres to all be single-family residential?
It is.
Okay. Because I know I would like us to put in our motion, if the commissioner if the commissioner's recommendation is going to be to approve, and also I'd like to mention, since we have a city council person here, the actual zoning of this tourist resort allows for a lot more than single-family residential. So I think if we approve it, we should approve it, the zoning subject to this portion being single-family residential, unless they come back for a further approval.
Mr. Turner,
yes.
Chairman, that is what they are requesting, is for the low-rise residential.
Emily, say that again.
Their application request for low-rise residential.
Right.
Okay.
It's a subzoning.
Do you agree with that, Ken?
Low rising in and of itself doesn't limit the single family residential. In that definition of low rise, it's single family residential. But in other uses such as assisted living facilities, medical facilities that go along with assisted living facilities, so it's not strictly limited to single-family residential simply because it's in the low-rise district.
I think I'd rather be safe than sorry and clarify that. Personally, I don't.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, ours is just a recommendation to City Council anyway.
Right, but I wanted to make sure City Council knew my concern on that.
I understand.
Any further questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd make a motion, Mr. Chairman, for case ZC 19.04. This is a zoning issue only that we recommend to the city council approval of this application, and it would be for single-family low-rise only.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, the next item on the agenda has to do with the same piece of property. That was a recommendation for the full 99 acres, and this is a subdivision request for 25, well, let's just say 26 of those 95 acres. We do have 6 people listed to speak to this item. We've got a pretty long agenda, so if you're listed and somebody has said what you said, don't feel like you need to re-say it. I'm going to take a list of all the questions and get the developer back up to answer all the questions at one time to make sure that we get all the questions answered. SD 1912 subdivision, and this is subject to the city council approving the zoning.
Yes, and also there's a couple of conditions of approval on this that we have specified. So just be aware of those, which is documentation from the Corps verifying the site no longer has wetlands and shall be provided, submittal of a traffic study report, and the conditional annexation and rezoning.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Would the developer wish to say anything at this time?
Oh. Tim Lawley with Hutchins-Moore and Rao. I just wanted to clarify, it's my understanding from conversations with the city engineer that the full traffic report that Nancy is referring to is not going to be required at this point in time. We've submitted a traffic study for Phase 6 in itself, and we've also agreed to update the overall traffic study for the master plan and the future entrance on Twin Beach that will take into account the intersection of Twin Beach and Section and some other things. And Richard may be able to clarify that.
Excuse me, Tim.
Yes.
What I heard the other night somewhat had to do, and certainly this fronts out on Section Street.
Correct.
Any other considerations for sidewalks, et cetera?
Not at this time.
And what would encourage that?
I mean, we have relayed that information to the developer and intend to have that conversation with the developer. I just haven't heard back from them at this point. And are you referring to the sidewalks from Battles Road to Twin Beach?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We've yet to have that conversation.
You had the conversation, you hadn't heard back, does that mean they're not going to?
No, it doesn't. It just means we haven't heard
back.
back at all. We forwarded the letter that you received in your packet to RSA and fully intend to follow up with them on that and see what their position is.
Thank you.
All right. All right. On the public hearing, the first person who is listed to speak is James Black. When you come up, please say your name, your address, where you're from, and then we try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. We would appreciate it. Thank you so much. This one right here.
Good afternoon. James Black, 18674 Twin Beach Road. My comments are to do with both SD 1912 as well as the preceding issue. In reading your own city's moratorium on building subdivisions, it appears to me that your committee is not compliant with what you've said about integrated assessments regarding community involvement with these type of programs or planning, because as represented here, you've talked about the developer, but yet the developer has not been to any community meetings on discussions of these issues. They've been represented by the engineers, and nothing against the engineers that have been present, but they have been non-committal to any of the issues that have been brought up by the stakeholders of the community at large that live in that area. And so, well, I can appreciate we want to move things forward. We still do not have any resolve from the investors and the developer as to what commitments they have to the community to meet an integrated plan for these subdivisions, which is what you state in your own reports, is that the community-based integrated planning would be done for things like traffic patterns, community assisted living, sidewalks, and to control congestion, as well as sanitation and sewer systems. And so what I'm asking the committee to do is get not just the engineers here, but where are the developers and the investors that can commit to the community that has voiced their opinion on what needs to be done before these projects can move forward. So at this point in time, I think that, well, you want to move forward with the zoning, I think we need to step back and look at that again before we go ahead and approve this subdivision for the 45 lots. Because this, when you look at the integrated approach for Lakewood and whatever phase of Battle Creek, this should be considered holistically at a systems level and not an end-to-end process where we're compliant here, so now we're going to move forward. Instead, I'd like to see an entire comprehensive plan and assessment before we move forward with this program.
Thank you very much. The next person whose name is on the list is Met McCall.
Thank you. I live right across from this development on the south section between Battles and Twin Beach. So we're 7190 Broadbeck Lane is a dirt road right in between off of the eastern side of south section. So I'm right across from this development. And I went to the meeting on Monday at the Rotary Club, and I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that there's a dialogue and a conversation here. I mean, as we just heard the engineer, our requests and wishes were forwarded to the developer, and they have not heard back. So I don't really see a conversation happening yet. And the developer, that's private property rights, they don't really need to get back to us. They can really do, as far as I understand, whatever they please. The way that it's structured right now, unless there's some kind of change that we do something about it. And what that is, I'm not really sure. But I left that meeting deeply troubled, trying to see from the current plan that the community is going to be gated. We're not going to have access to ride our bikes and to walk in there, and to have access to the lake and access the bay from there. And worst of all, there's no sidewalk or bike path planned. And it looks like this is going to be the first lot of about 600 units, which is about maybe 1,200 more cars on that stretch of road. Very narrow stretch of road. And I really want my kids to be able to bike into Fairhope from where we live. I ride my bike with my heart up my throat until I get to Twin Beach, where the city begins and the sidewalk begins. And I understand it's county road. I know that you as a city do not have jurisdiction over that part of the road. But I am here because I don't know where else to go with this problem. Having this huge subdivision go in with all this more traffic and congestion and dangers on the road, and I just want my kids to be able to bike on that road. I really think we are judged as a community by the quality of life we provide our citizens. And this is direct opposite to that. My daughter goes to Fairhope High. She's a freshman there. She wants nothing more than to bike to school. It's a 15-minute ride. Yet I am scared to death of letting her bike on that road. And this is, she right now, she rides the bus 45 minutes every way. She could do that in 15 minutes if she biked. If there was just a stretch of cement from Twin Beach to Old Battles. That's really all we're asking for. We are talking about RSA here, the owner of the Grand Hotel, of the retirement fund. I mean, we've got to ask just a little bit back. If they're going to put 1,200 cars on this road, just give us a bike path. I mean, I don't think we're being unreasonable here. And again, I do realize you're the city of Fairhope, you're not the county. But is there a way with this zoning, or somehow we can work with these people that will listen to us? We're not asking anything out of the ordinary here. I even heard the developer say, well, we'd much rather put in a bike path than 2 lift stations. I mean, we'd say we probably also hopefully have to do, because the sewage runoff is a whole other problem that we haven't even addressed yet. So anyway, that's just my concerns that I hope you will take into considerations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person listed is, I believe it says Lori Jones Ash. Can't read the first name here.
That's it. My name is Lori Jones Ash, 19060 Cedar Lane. Fairhope. And you said don't come redundant, so I have the same concern that Mr. Black has and as the young lady has. Those are my same concern too. About having the meeting, they met with the engineer and not the developer, you know, to see, hear our concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Emily Bettis is the next person on the list.
No comment at this time.
Okay. By the way, when I do close the public hearing, that's it. So it's kind of speak now or hold your peace, because I'm not allowed to let people speak out of order after the public hearing. So if at the end of the public hearing you want to come up, that'll be fine. But when the public hearing's closed, that you won't have another chance, just so you know that. Lonnie Bettis.
Good evening. Good evening. It's a good evening to be up here. My name is Lonzie Bettis. Emily didn't want to say nothing. She kind of scared. But anyway, I live at 19103 Wilson Lane. I'm on the, I wouldn't you would say that I'm on the north side of 44. Right in front where they got the gate there, where they're putting that, where they're gonna make the entrance into. I read in that subdivision at one time or another. And what I was just thinking, like, I'm not real educated, but I got a lot of sense. But I was thinking like this, I don't know why they always wait till a late date like this to bring something into the community. And when we find out anything about all this kind of stuff, it's way too late. Now this here development, it all been out there, it all been in the paper somewhere months ago, before this all even got started. That's what it seemed like to me, what should have happened. When we find out something about this, it's almost a done deal. When somebody comes right in your back door and then put something up, then you can't have no access to it at all, that's kind of embarrassing to me. Putting all that over there, and I can't, like the lady said, you can't even ride a bike through there. Probably the way it's gonna be, that's the way the Marriott is down there now. You ain't got no business down there unless you down there to spend the night or at that resort down there. And see, like to me, they're using the Alabama, they're using the teachers and all retired money. Seems like to me they would be more concerned about areas like this. Because I don't believe, I can never think of the man's name. If he wasn't been living right where I am, I'm quite sure he would have been up here now saying he wouldn't have wanted nothing like that in his area. Or he would have been had some voice to voice his opinion on the matter. You know, we all know progress gonna take place. But somewhere down the line, somewhere, something got to give in Fairhope area. I don't know what it's going, it's too much there. Just everywhere you look, it's just going on, so I don't know what's gonna happen. But I do know this. The bay is run out there right now from Seward. And it's gonna steady get worse, because every time it come a rain, same thing happens. And I'm gonna keep on saying it too, till something be did about it, as long as I live here in Fairhope. Amen?
Amen. All right, Stacy Quates is the last person on our list.
Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Quates, and I reside at 6325 Twin Beach Road. And my husband, Harvey Mitchell, our resident is right in front of the lift station that's located on Twin Beach Road. We get to smell it. I hear it. I call, I'm doing the call, and I get sick of calling. The next person I'm gonna call is ADM, because it's water running over there, and it's got to be running in the bushes. And if you're gonna put 200 homes right there and put another lift station, where that's gonna run to? It's not even homes there, and the homes that's got access to that lift station don't any of them live right there on Twin Beach Road. So I'm assuming that stuff is coming from down on 98, round by the hotel, and they pushing it up the hill. but it's going back down the hill. We can't sit on, and regardless of whether my house is $2,000 or $250,000, I should be able to sit on my porch and enjoy it, but we can't. The smell is ridiculous, and I get sick of calling. My neighbors, I don't know if they call, but nobody can sit outside down there. And I'm trying to think of the public work. When I call, they just ought to say, Miss Quakes, we on the way. That shouldn't be on my agenda when I get off from work to worry about if I'm gonna smell sewage that it ain't even on mine. And if you're gonna allow all of this stuff to happen, y'all need to make sure the infrastructure of that area is capable of handling that. I mean, right now, y'all pushing somebody else's stuff up the hill, and it's not working. They say it all of the time. They messed up our driveway. The city of Fairhope done had to repair our land because y'all had big trucks coming up in there trying to put hydro sulfide, fate. It's cancerous. It causes cancer. But it's nothing we can do. Because I complain and they come down there and shut us up, and finally I shut up. And just pray my family don't get sick. So y'all need to take in consideration. Oh, and another thing. I received one, it must have been at the end of, for the February meeting, because it was in March. The second Tuesday in March, y'all had a meeting. I haven't received any notification, and my home is directly across, facing that. And so and we pay taxes. We in there. So I think the notifications to the homeowners and the property owners that's in that area, they need to do better by, and the only reason why I found out about this meeting today was I got an email from a cousin. And I think that the city, if that y'all were having this, you should have notified the homeowners of this meeting. And some of the other members that's in here now, I called them. They didn't know anything about it. And if this meeting was going on today, about the meeting they had on Thursday, I didn't know anything about that. They should have let those people at that meeting know that they were having this. I showed up, but they were coming out of the meeting when someone called me. And I think the notification process, I don't know how it works. But when we owe money to the city, y'all find us. And I feel like if you fixing to do something that's gonna affect our property, you should find us about that too.
Well, let me say this, there's the state requires the notifications that the developers have to do, and that's all, based on state regulations.
I can't hear you.
The state determines the notifications. That's all state requirements that the developers do. As far as the meeting Thursday, that's something that only happens in Fairhope. Other areas in Alabama don't have those meetings. That's something that we've started trying here recently to give the citizens, a shot at the developer before we're up here. And that's something that we've done that you'll find no other cities in South Alabama do that. We're copying that from some places around Florida that do that. We're trying our best to, let the citizens be heard, and that's why we require the developers to have that pre-development meeting. That's something we've just done recently. Another item on the agenda is a multiple occupancy project. In all other towns besides Fairhope, those go straight to the building commissioner. In Fairhope, we have a public hearing about those. So we try our best to have things as out there as possible to get as much community participation as possible.
Well, what people do with their land, it's not in our control. I can't tell anybody what to do with their land. But if you're gonna allow that many homes to come there, I just want, because I'm already smelling the stuff. I just want to make sure I don't have to smell 200 more. And why it's got to go down there? Why it can't go up north and meet because I've already asked the guy. He said it's running up to meet right there at the corner of Twin Beach and Section. And then it's got to run back down Fairhope. Well, I was wondering why he couldn't keep it running around the bay. Because the substation down there on that end. So you run it up Twin Beach Hill, which is half going up Twin Beach Hill. All of it ain't going up there. And I got a problem with that. No, I don't have any grandchildren running outside, but I want to be outside.
Sure. We'll ask those questions to the developer for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you get my address?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quates. Anybody else wish to speak to this item? Yes, sir.
I do want to clarify a few things. Let's talk about the traffic impact study. Just so you recall, this is a continuation of a development that started 06, 07, and when they did, when Skipper was hired to do the original traffic impact, they established a residential capacity that they studied, and it was, just so you know, that number of units is greater than what's already built today, plus what's in the proposed phase we're talking about right now. But the problem is that traffic study is over 10 years old. The other thing is that traffic study did not contemplate that there would be a connection on Section as well as Twin Beach. Now, granted, if you have a number less than what was originally contemplated and you're increasing an entrance point, you're actually going to possibly lessen the loading on each individual intersection as well as the nodes that go from there. So what the applicant did do for us, they got a update letter and short executive summary of the impact for this phase 6 to get us at least current on that, with the commitment that as they finalize their master plan for this 99 acres, including an additional ingress and egress point on Twin Beach, that they would bring in a brand new updated traffic impact study. So I think by the time you see phase 7 or whatever, that will be in-house and it will be relevant and it will be updated. And of course, if that impact study determines certain improvements on the public rights-of-ways, whether it be Battles or Section or Twin Beach, then that will be something contemplated in approvals for future phases. So understand that will be one of those things. The other thing I do want to make sure the audience and everybody understands, a developer who does a subdivision has the option to choose to have private roads, and they do that at their own peril, meaning they have to build those roads to a public standard. They don't get a break on the cost of a construction or anything of that nature, but if they choose for them to be private, the following things happen. One, they will never petition the city for acceptance and maintenance, meaning that every homeowner there pays the same taxes as any other person in the corporate limits of Fairhope. But Public Works will never fix a pothole, never fix a sidewalk, never fix a curb, or do any maintenance on those roads. Those property owners, to their POA or HOA, will have that burden on them. And also, if we have a natural disaster and our debris contract for cleaning up the debris from that natural disaster, they don't get to participate because FEMA will not reimburse the city for debris collected from private roads. So they will have to pay all of that to their own contractor to do that. That is a choice that a developer can make in the beginning, that he's going to have private roads. And thus, since there's no public dollars committed to maintain those roads, they have a right to gate it and restrict it, whether you like it or not. But understand, no tax dollars of the citizens of Fairhope will be spent on those roads going forth in the future. And those roads that are currently there, that's been there when they started construction in 08 or whenever it was, not one penny of public tax dollars has ever been spent on maintaining those roads. Those individuals that live there bear that cost and will continue to bear that cost. And I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Well, we had, due to the comprehensive plan of the connectivity, we had no problem with private roads, but we never, with the exception of RSA in this one zoning, allowed them to be gated. And we haven't approved a gated community in a decade, with the exception of this one right here. And what about the the question about is the lift station that Ms. Quates was referring to, is that failing at this time?
That would be a better question for Mr. Peterson. He is your
Okay.
utilities operation. I'm roads and drainage, so.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've got one more person we'll have, and then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn the meeting over to the commissioners.
Beth Broadbeck, 18280 Section Street. So I spoke last month. So my big thank you for the public meeting. I do appreciate that. It was held on Sunday night. We had 1 day notice. Again, this notification system does have to improve. I know that we are Fairhope, we're doing better than everybody else, but it's still not good enough. Anyway, I think that was the beginning of a great dialogue, and I do appreciate the Planning Commission requesting for the developer to hold that. However, the developer was not there, and I feel like we're talking to a blank wall. So the engineer is presenting this, he held the meeting, RSA is still not there. We don't have any feedback on our comments. So, I mean, are we going through this effort for nothing? I mean, this community, this development is going to significantly impact and forever change this entire area. As I mentioned before, a lot of us have had land in this community for generations, and we plan to pass on our land to our children. And all we're asking for is some more community dialogue, some more community involvement. I would like, personally, we would like sidewalks, and as we mentioned, the traffic is an issue. I have 2 young kids. We love to ride our bikes. I don't think that's asking very much, and as this road becomes more and more populated with the apartments, and this is Section Street between Battles and Twin Beach, there is a lot more pedestrian traffic. I'm starting to see people from the apartments walking down the street. Really, again, this is not asking very much, and it could be a cooperative arrangement between the city and the county and the development, and I think that would be a great opportunity for something like this to happen. Also, I'm concerned about stormwater. Stormwater has been a major issue with the apartments. It's been a major issue with the development of RSA and some of the earlier phases. I don't know how, I know that they said that they're addressing it, but sorry, Scott, it's the same engineer, it's probably gonna be the same contractor. Stormwater is a significant issue, and I want to make sure that it is going to be addressed during the construction phase, and all that runoff doesn't go downhill. It gets captured on site. So really, just more community involvement, sidewalks. We would like access to that community. Even if Fairhope does have to pay for the maintenance, it would be worth it for the community as a whole to have those public roads, or have those roads open to the public so that we can access them, we can get down to the bay. Then this community would start giving back. It would actually be part of Fairhope, be part of the community, instead of walling itself off and the rest of us have to deal with the impacts of it.
That's a very good point. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak to this item?
Good afternoon. I'm Walter Spurs. I relocated here in '96. Born and raised Twin Beach Road and Cedar Lane, just below the church. And I'm sorry. So I've seen a lot of changes happen. And when Stacy got up and spoke of this, I guess we call it stink tube, they call it pump stations. In 96, 97, you can always stand in that area. I'm just Cedar Lane, a couple of blocks from that. And it was so bad to the Stacy, other kinfolks around that, had to put bath towels under the doors, moldings around the windows so the air wouldn't come in. It was just that strong. When they got ready to put the towel in, we object. I don't know if it was too late or on time. They did purchase the land right by the Twin Beach Church, 2 acres. And the guy, we had meetings trying to protest it. They said, well, if we got to be a neighbor, let us be good neighbors. say we only need a half an acre for the tile. My point was, when they put the tile up, they said only gonna release so much of static electricity, supposed to be causing cancer. So at that time, they always said it's gonna be one thing, about 5 or 6 other than incorporate on that tile. So what the output is not, we don't know. They stick their foot in the door just to get in there, then they keep moving. And to resolve that at that time, I called Environmental Department in Montgomery, Alabama. We told them about the scent. They said the odor they had, they couldn't do anything about it. The liquid, they couldn't do anything about it. The grass was just green, just growed up green all around it. And they said unless it was some solids, then they can charge a fine. They contact the city of Fairhope. Not glad to brag. And the next day, it looked like an army. They had about 6 or 8 trucks, vehicles down there. I made a mark on that tank, the greaser tank. It stayed there 3 months, not even moving. When the pump go, I understand, the greaser supposed to go in. This is something that smells good, odorized, you know. They wasn't doing that. Then they start responding and doing good for a while, so now I guess it's back at the same old, same old. But if this development move in, I imagine they're gonna make some changes for them. Why? Since 97, they hadn't did it for us, 22 years, you know. And that's not the only problem, but if you look at the paper here, excuse me, I saw at 4 different places, they're on Twin Beach, Section Street, Twin Beach 44, 181, 44. That's still in our neighborhood. Why are they tackling our area? Now my taxes, I'm retired. Without my pension. So I'm exempt, but a lot of them in there still trying to make living and life for their family. How are they gonna do it? I came here in 96, y'all know what the gas was? 93 to 97 cents. 249 now. So it increased gold, everything going up, everything. But the salary and the pay, you know. So I was just wondering, and every time we found out something like that tile, it was too late. They managed to put the tile in. The guy said, if we got to be neighbors, let us be good neighbors. Let us give something back to the community. He gave 1.5 acres and put a playground in it, a double court basketball, little sliding boards for the kids, and also put street lights in almost from 98, down 44, I'm sorry, down 44 to the graveyard, 44 lights. He said, we'll do that and service it for 4 years. And after 4 years, if that light in front of your door, you get paid for it. And a lot of them kept it, I kept it, and most of them did, to keep it lighted through that. But most time, like I said, I didn't get this note until the day that this meeting was gonna be. We always get in on the tail end of things. It's like, I hate to say it, conspiracy, but I mean, why is it we can't be informed at a timely matter to prep it, where we could have told the Teachers Association the problem we're having already. What are they gonna do with this thing too? They're gonna move it now because they're coming in? And we have other problems, you know, have any of them went out to perk the soil to see if they have water levels, water tables? What's gonna happen over there? It was a pond directly across the street from my mom's house. Every time it rained, it filled up. We go there and throw rocks and stuff in it. Pull the old man up and they found a spring. What they gonna do with the excess water when they have a problem with it already? It's a lot of things. Have they researched before they bought the property, purchase it, to move in an area that's gonna do this? They wanna do things and hope it come out on the plan like they had it. But when they get out there and search, it could be so many other problems that cause us conflict. What's gonna happen to the existing people that working that have to pay taxes? We know they're gonna go up. Everything around the property gonna increase. That sounds good for me, but what about my kids coming in? 3 kids, 8 grandkids. They're gonna have to buy. So it's gonna be out of range for them, you know. Everything going up for what, you know? I think it ought to have been more consideration, more groundwork, and we should have been more informed, and they should do more groundwork to see what's in there, what can be possible in there. But everywhere you look, you see 4 different spots on Twin Beach or 44, Section Street, You know, it's like pushing us, you know. Where are we going? And that is, like I say, family property. Been in the family for years. So where are we going? You know, they may have to increase the money to do the development. Well, what the home said, the home people's gonna do, existing people, the residents, and their families and kids they're trying to raise here. You know, I think all this has been looked at and under consideration before they try to make a final decision. It sounds nice,
Right.
you know. So I appreciate y'all listening to me and everything, and I hope I went wrong out of order.
No, if I could make two
I just
if I
like
could
to know what this gonna be.
Right, and I'm going to ask the developers, and I'm not trying to sell their project, but if I can make two comments. One, you commented on what the city would do for the developers. As far as the lift stations and all the infrastructure, the city will do nothing for them. It's all on their cost. So they'll do the lift stations, they'll do the, you know, it's not that the city are coming in and doing for them because they like them. They're actually the ones that will foot the bill on this, number one. Number two, we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't. If something nice goes in next to you and raises your property values, then, you know, you're upset that the property tax goes up, but you sure don't want something to come in and lower your property tax values. So it's kind of a little bit of a catch-22. But one thing I want to mention, since you said you've been in that area for so long, Thursday at 6 p.m. at the library, the Single Tax Corporation is having their lecture series, and this Thursday is African-American settlers on the Eastern Shore, which I don't know a lot about. I'm going to go, but, you know, that whole area was settled back, you know, by African-Americans way before, you know, the rest of us came in. So I say the rest of us, actually, my eighth great granddad was the first settler in here, non-Native American, in 1722, and got ran out in 1762 by when the French got run out by the Spanish. But anyway, he lasted about 40 years in Fairhope. But anyway, should be, for people who are interested in history, that should be a really good talk that might interest you personally there. But I just wanted to say that, you know, the city will not be paying any of the cost of the infrastructure as far as lift stations or
well, I know our
storm
family
sewer.
was occupying that property sometime in the 1800s, probably the late 1800s, you know, so. But if our taxes go up, are the Teachers Association going to assume that extra?
No.
They ain't pay for that, are they?
No, sir.
Okay, they want to throw this on us, right?
Right.
They hadn't thought about the consideration. Can we afford it?
Right.
If they did not, their salary is much higher. Look what the salary is here. So they got the big money, they want to invest it. That's good. We don't, what can we invest?
Right, but remember, this is, you know, we're not society's helpers here. We basically look at subdivisions and see if they meet the subdivision regulations. So, you know, that's not in our purview, but I understand what you're saying very much.
So has it been settled? If they move it in or what?
I'm sorry?
It still had to be voted on, or are they already?
No, it's voted on, but the point is it's kind of like Ms. Broadbeck said when she said, what's the use of all these meetings? Bottom line, if they meet the subdivision regs, we're by law have to approve it. Otherwise, they can just take it to court and we spend some of the city's money, and the courts tell us to approve it. In my 18 years on this board, we've had 2 subdivisions that we've denied that have met the subdivision regulations, and in both times, Judge Reed sent them back to us in about 8 weeks and told us we had to approve them or we would be in contempt of court. And that teaches you your lesson pretty quickly. But we like to have these meetings anyway because sometimes suggestions are made that we can do things about. I'm going to be very interested in the sidewalks that a lot of people mentioned today.
Yeah.
And also just that communication. Sometimes, you know, people will volunteer to do things to be a good neighbor, or they'll switch things a little bit and make it nicer. But the bottom line is, you know, we're not in Connecticut, we're not in New Hampshire, we're in Alabama. And in Alabama, private property rights are extremely powerful.
Okay. I thank y'all for listening. Thank you.
Sir, can I get your address?
Pardon me?
Your address, please.
1903.
Thank you.
All right, we'll have one more speaker, and if you don't mind saying your name and address, and we'll try to keep it to 3 minutes, and we'll move on. We've got a big agenda.
First of all, I thank y'all for hearing me. I hope you hear me anyway. My name is Johnny Cheney. I live at 598 Middle Street in Fairhope, and I'm a community organizer. I have a group that's called Point Clear Fairhope Action Community. And would the group please stand? Please stand. Anyway, it's more than this, but anyway, I just want to come and tell you, those sidewalks that's on Twin Beach Road right now, I work with the county to get those sidewalks for our children and the community, because our children had to stand in grass and catch the bus in the morning time. Okay, and one morning, we've been working with the hotel anyway. One morning I caught, I guess he was the CEO or the manager down there, Mr. Clark, running in grass down there. Our first section we got went to the little curve down there on Hurd Road. And so we had to get another grant to run them all the way from that curve down there where that station you talking about is on down to Old Highway 98. And so I caught Mr. Clark running down there one morning, and I asked him, I said, how would you like to have some sidewalks that you can run on instead of running in this grass and stuff? Because this is swamp down here and it might be snakes in this grass. And he said, we would love that. And so we did get the other grant. And so we got the sidewalks put on down to Old Mobile Street. So what I'm saying and what I'm hoping that the Grand Hotel would do is do something for these people, because we've been trying to work with them. But now I know the city has never did anything for the black community. I'm having problems right now with drainage, where they ran a drain to the middle of the street, ran it all the way from Fair Lane, ran it to the middle down Michon Street, and ran it straight across my property. So I know you're not going to do anything, but I wish you would, and I'll pray for you to do something.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and ask the developer if you don't mind coming back up. First of all, I don't know, Richard, the lift station, is there a filling lift station in this area?
I'm glad you asked.
Is your mic on?
It should be. Lights on. Can you hear me now? But yeah, and I appreciate everybody's concern with that. And I will say that the initial phase of this Phase 6 project is going to a lift station that won't be adding to the load of the one on Twin Beach. The developer has agreed to deed the city some property behind that lift station. It'll be about 400 feet behind it. And we're going to build a facility there that will basically eliminate the lift station on Twin Beach Road, but it will stay there as a standby unit for extreme events when we just are overwhelmed with rain from inflow. But we do anticipate, and let me just say one other thing while I'm thinking about it. If you have an odor control problem at the lift station, and I don't know who you're talking to, but this is the first time I've heard. I've stopped by there several times. I haven't noticed an odor that you've described, but our intention is not to be bad neighbors with the systems that we run, and if we have been, I apologize for that, and we'll work on that. But basically, we're working with the RSA to not only deal with the wastewater infrastructure of the development, but to work with being able to store that water for rain events that comes from the Grand Hotel and everything down County Road 1, so that we can manage wastewater flows to the plant during, and this is not the only location we're talking about putting these side stream storage units in. We're talking about potentially 7 of them around the city. And, you know, we're going to work our way through them, and each one of them are going to be in locations that the city owns property, or in this case, a developer has donated or deeded property to us. And I understand the wastewater system is taxed during heavy rain events, and the development in itself is adding to the transmission capacity requirements. We're under contract right now with 2 transmission upgrades from the plant back out toward these drainage basins. We're going to follow those 2 projects with projects that create these side stream vessels and other extended force mains to eliminate some of these constraint points we have in the system. All these things take time, and we're working our best with both the developers and with the rehabilitation of the existing system to address these concerns. You know, we're not trying to hide anything. We're doing the best we can with the time that it takes to get these projects done. And, you know, sometimes it may not be quick enough for some people, but it's the best we have at this point in time. And I hope that, you know, it may not be next year or the year after that, but eventually we'll all be proud of what we have, and that's what our goal is. So I hope I've answered some questions. If you have any questions besides this particular issue, call me at work anytime.
Richard Peterson.
Well, I was used to talk to Dan McCoy is the person that I used to talk to.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. He's retired.
He's retired. Richard.
And then you just get the little people who on the phone.
Yeah,
And
just,
man,
we got to move on this meeting, and that's a separate issue, but Richard Peterson, 928-8003. And you can discuss specific issues about that lift station with him. He's the water sewer chairman now. We had questions about the stormwater and sidewalks as well.
Sure. Stacy mentioned the lift station, and so did Mr. Walter, and I think Mr. Peterson addressed that. We're proposing new and upgraded facilities, so I think it'll certainly help with the problems that are existing. So I won't add any more to what Mr. Peterson said. The stormwater, the current plan meets the city standards. There's an additional lake being proposed in the golf course area to capture the water, and as a lot of cases we're going over what's required by the city of Fairhope and stormwater control, and it does meet the current standards. I'll let Mr. Johnson address that if he'd like to. The sidewalk, I made a list of some comments. Mr. Black's comments about the integrated approach and some things like that.
Could we put this?
That's really.
Could we put this on the screen?
That's really more of a planning commission rules question. I mean, we're here to follow. Give us rules, we're going to follow them, and if we don't, then we don't get approved. So that's kind of more than what we can, as a firm and designers, address. And we're trying to, reach out and listen to some comments, and we certainly are. We're not just passing those along and expect them to go nowhere. We're actually expecting RSA to consider our requests and work through some of these things. Ms. Metz comment about the sidewalks, and Ms. Jones had the same concerns. The sidewalks, what we're really considering is our sidewalks on section connecting Twin Beach with an area to the south, down to our development or all the way to Battles. It's not something we nor the developer can right now just say, yes, we're going to do, because there's more factors involved. It's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit on that road. The county has to, there's more approvals needed to be given than we can just say, yes, we'll do it. But I can say we are seriously talking with the developer, and they are seriously considering doing it. But it's bigger than just something I can say, yes, we're going to go do it. It's not quite that easy. But we're not ignoring it, certainly. So if you have any questions about sidewalks, I'll try to answer them.
Scott, it appears it's about, I'll just roughing it, but it seems like there's about 4,500 feet from Twin Beach down to Battles.
Sounds about right.
It looks like, well, if you divided that into 5 sections, y'all have got 2 of the 5. Where the golf course is down, let's see, that would be number 10 golf course, on the golf course,
Yes.
comes down Section Street, and then this new piece. So you've got 2/5 of it. I mean, it seems to me that between RSA and the county, especially with, what was the group that did the sidewalks from Battleship all the way through? Huh?
Baldwin County
Trailblazers, you know, that there ought to be some effort that could be ginned up out of that group between the county and you guys and the Trailblazers to get the other 3/5.
And we're considering that, for sure.
Well, I at a minimum, you know, with like sidewalks, you know, I'm one of the last of this is my third, you know, today is my 18th year on this commission. So I'm the last of the Mohicans that Mayor Nix put on. And when originally we allowed, or we approved this tourism district, this it's kind of like a PUD, and I always want to call it a PUD, but it's a zoning. Originally, when we approved it, we were told that it was going to be private roads. However, we were told that it was going to be open to the public for the pedestrian crossings, and we were shown pictures of, you know, beautiful boardwalks going through wetlands areas, ultimately connecting, you know, not this area particularly, but area contiguous to this all the way to the Grand Hotel. And, you know, when I've ridden my bike from my parents' house to the Colony, there are some areas that's pretty scary there because, you know, you've got 8-foot drop-offs down there on Battles Road. You've got some places with sidewalks and some with not. On County Road 3, it's certainly scary. And you know, I feel a lot of what Ms. Broadbeck was saying, you know, and other people, you come in and you take a big section of land and you close it off. And, you know, with our connectivity, we don't allow that. However, you know, when we allowed this district to be that way, it was because we were looking at 10 high-rise buildings that we didn't want. And there was a lawsuit, and we were scared that we were going to have 10 buildings that looked like the one that was there, that, you know, would change that whole look of that community to Gulf Shores or Orange Beach from, you know, beautiful Point Clear and Fairhope. So that's the history of how the you know, gates got there. You know, I personally would like, you know, this portion that goes to County Road 3, I would like to make in the motion that we have to have a sidewalk along County Road 3 or no gates on the subdivision, their choice. Because I just don't think if we look at public safety, if there are no sidewalks on County Road 3 and then you lock the subdivision, there's nowhere for people to go. And, you know, the one man mentioned people waiting for the school bus, I think right back here, mentioned folks waiting for the school bus. You know, there are going to be people in the subdivision waiting for the school buses, and I don't know if the school bus is going to go all the way through the subdivision or if they're going to want to stop on County Road 3. And if they do stop on County Road 3, it'd be nice to have some concrete for them to be standing on rather than, you know, standing in the grass in the ditch. So I would like to see, you know, on this section, and they can't put it on, but I like to see on this section right here a sidewalk or no gates. You know, y'all work it out. That's, you know, that's my feeling. I have a feeling if that's the requirement, I have a feeling y'all be able to figure out how to do sidewalks on that section pretty quickly. We built, you know, I'm the president of the Single Tax Corporation, and we built a lot of sidewalks, and they're not that expensive. And I'm Mr. Sidewalk because, you know, people talk about clay in the water, and, you know, I've swum with clay in the water numerous times and never been hurt. You know, I've swum across Fish River when it looks like coffee and never been hurt. But, you know, I've almost got run over on my bicycle about a half dozen times in my life and scared the heck out of me to where I don't ride my bike anymore. But I used to, you know, love to ride a road bike out on, and that was one of the routes I rode when I lived in Point Clear, was County Road 3. But, you know, as the traffic increases and no sidewalks, it's scary out there. But I don't know what the other commissioners feel, but I would like that as part of the motion, you know, personally, just to, you know, get that going. But other than that, the development looks, you know, I mean, everything looks fine to me.
You know, the only other thing that I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that we had this discussion at the public meeting down on Young Street the other night. But certainly, the issue revolves around the notion that we have regulations by which we must adhere. And if you're not satisfied with the regulations, you work within the community to get the regulations changed. It's the only way that it is. The regulations are the way the regulations are today. If it meets the regulations, it's our responsibility to approve the subdivision. If you don't like the regulations, as I said, then you work within the community to get the regulations changed. The same is true for us. We have this conversation among ourselves on a regular basis also. You don't like it, you change it. But if you're not going to change it, then you accept it. So if it meets it, then you pretty much have got to be saddled with approving the application. And if not, then the opposite is true. So with that said, yeah.
You know, we've done, I can name numerous places we've required sidewalks like that, and I can name some where we've missed it and really felt sorry for it afterwards. You know, Manley Road being one of the, you know, biggest examples. Anyway, any other comments or questions?
I do have something. I feel like this is a form of gentrification, and in one aspect, I feel like the subdivision is nice. In the other aspect, I do feel like the gated portion of it, if you're coming into somewhere and you are closing off, then we can't welcome you, nor can you welcome us into that community. And so I feel like in that subdivision, houses are upward of $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000. One house could get pretty much the majority of this stuff that the community is asking for. And I do feel like RSA could do this for that community if they truly wanted to. They're not asking a lot. And there is a lot of history in that community. I understand what everybody's saying, but at some point, you have to help the people that are around you. And they're not asking for a lot. I really don't see that being a lot. And so I feel like it's going to go on regardless. The community is going to be built, but it could be a happier community if you met the people in the middle.
Do you want to make that in the form of a motion?
I'll let her do
that. I will say, Mr. Chairman, we can, the area on section that we can control, we can't commit to sidewalks on that. The rest, all I can do is commit to pushing it. I hear what you're saying, Ms. Clarice, and I don't disagree at all. We can only recommend and suggest it and pass along the comments and feelings, and maybe we can come to that agreement.
If we get this section here, and then, you know, a few other sections as other portions are done, and then maybe RSA can run one, you know, from County Road 3, you know, down to the Colony, connect that area up, and then, you know, the apartments, when they come, you know, going to add some there. They agreed that people could walk through their sidewalks, and they're putting no fences there where people can cut through. So it's eventually, you know, we can get get enough that we can just connect the dots in between is you know, kind of what we're looking for.
Scott, I think y'all got
actually
two pieces. The piece that is in question right now, and the piece that's already within the golf course that fronts on Section Street down at the intersection of Old Battles and Section Street. It runs north.
Yeah, that's what I was just mentioning.
Yeah, that's one they already have control of, and then the one that's the matter of this hearing. So, right. I mean, you got two pieces right there, and there's only a relatively small piece. Well, that's not true. There's a bigger piece that's between it, but you get the picture.
Yeah. But if he could do this one, I mean, I would like to have this one in the form of a motion with the approval, and if he could just let them know that, you know, since that area is gated, if they could, you know, continue around the rest of the outside areas so that the rest of us have a place to go and not get run over. Okay. It'd be great.
They're probably watching this, so they're hearing.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, it's imperative for a developer to be present. It really, the connectivity it has with the citizens is huge. I think that that's important. I know that, that puts a lot on you as the engineer to sell their project. And I think that if they can come and be present, it's big.
Yeah, and the facilities are great. I mean, the colony is great, and people getting there, it's wonderful. All right.
Mrs. Quates, I'm your neighbor on Nelson Drive, and I agree that I smell the smell you smell, so I understand. I wanted to back you on that. I understand that, and it's been an issue for about 3 or 4 years.
It's been longer than that.
Wait a minute.
I got a question for the developer. I mean, the substation that's there now, you're gonna put another one. It looked like I saw a plan y'all had the other night. I looked at it, like right south of that one. If all of the houses that you're building are on top of the land, where the sewage going? That's what I want to know. Where is it? Where you pushing it to?
The area that Stacy's talking about is really not part of what you're seeing right now in this development that's before you. That's kind of in the future phases for the rezoning area, and that would be more on the west side of this property, where Mr. Peterson was talking about RSA giving that portion of property for a brand new lift station and I think some side storage too. Yeah. In there, and that would replace or highly upgrade the current lift station that's there now. But to answer your question, it's in the low spot, and the houses are up above it. The city of Fairhope requires gravity sewer now, as y'all are well aware, and you can't do low pressure anymore. So you have to gravity your sewer. It flows downhill, and so the lift station's in the lower spot. It collects it there, and then it pumps it to the treatment plant. So that's why it's in the low area, below the houses.
Right. Wish there's any further questions, or anybody have a motion?
Do you want to make a motion with the sidewalk?
I'm sorry, Hollywood.
Holly was asking if you'd like to make a motion with the sidewalk on County Road 3.
Yeah, ready?
We're ready.
All right. I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, case SD 19.12. I would recommend approval, subject to staff recommendation, sidewalk along the immediate subject property on Section Street.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, next item on the agenda is public hearing to consider the request of Henry and Barbara Brewster for a preliminary plat approval of Long Branch subdivision, a 28-lot subdivision. The property is located on the north side of Twin Beach Road between County Road 13 and Thompson Hall Road.
Thank you, and I will tell you the plat is probably not on this one as well. We just shifted and now putting the images up there is kind of fallen to the planner, so I apologize for that. I got to get used to all the routines, so my fault. But also, okay, so the property is located on the north side of Twin Beach Road between County Road 13 and Thompson Hall Road. It's got 28 lots, and it's situated on 18.71 acres. The largest lot is 15,027 square feet, and the smallest is 12,195 square feet. And let's see, we did get one letter that I just saw, and we've got some conditions, conditional upon annexation and zoning approval through City Council. I believe it was tabled at the last council meeting. The applicant shall provide a standalone speed hump. They have put in one speed hump, but I had a conversation just before the meeting where the POA mentioned that they'd like one also at the edge of Sedgefield, and I talked to Richard Johnson about that, so we'll be talking to the applicant about that issue. Also, let's see, they added a note on the plat about some stream buffers. They didn't have that on the original plat. They have since added the buffer and shown that, but we would like a note referencing our regs and uses of those. And we are waiting for some verification regarding the gopher tortoise. We have not gotten an update on that. And the applicant shall provide a ADEM registration. And on this, it has an issue as well with sidewalks along, I believe it's, anyway, there's a portion of the road where there's some drainage. They are going to put sidewalks along the front of the development. We've requested they put an easement for the section. There's a culvert right there, and from the culvert to the west, I believe it is, that we've asked them to put a easement simply if there's some future growth in the area. At this time, it's kind of awkward to work around because there's a lot of drainage, but if that changes, we'd like an easement placed there as well. So if you can just add it, a condition that says sidewalks will be installed at the front and to where they can, and an easement will be added for the remainder. That's along Twin Beach.
Nancy, one thing, I read about the gopher tortoise.
Right.
I don't believe gopher tortoises are threatened nor endangered in Baldwin County.
Okay.
That's not an issue.
Well, my question was going to be the same, not, but from a different direction.
Okay.
We don't have anything in our regulations about gopher tortoises, do we?
We have natural resources. That would be considered, I believe it
Gopher
would.
tortoises are only threatened in the area west, in Alabama, west of the Mobile River.
Right,
That's
but
Washington County and Baldwin County, in Mobile County. Baldwin County, they're contemplating putting them on the threatened and endangered species list all the way through the panhandle of Florida, but they've not done it yet, and they're not threatened at this time.
Right. The reason we raised it is there are neighbors that are concerned about it, just like there are like species of trees, that if there's a particular species on some sites that we've had where there's a really unique feature, a natural resource, we have asked if they would try to preserve that, and that's the same thing we're looking for here.
So you are requiring that they have a right-of-way on
Just
full-
verification that they're there and follow any kind of federal guidelines, that if they have to move them or somehow preserve them, yes.
On the Twin Beach Road, you are requiring that they have a right-of-way?
Yes.
For the full Twin Beach Road?
An easement for the remainder, yeah.
Okay.
Sidewalk on one portion on the eastern side, and then a continued pedestrian easement all the way across the line.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a clarification?
Yes.
The conditional annexation and rezoning was not tabled. It had first reading by the council, and it's going to second reading. That was at the last city council meeting.
Okay.
So it had first reading, was not tabled, had first reading, and was going to second reading for adoption.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on behalf of the developer?
Steve Pumphrey with Dewberry, I actually represent the owner and the developer. We keep referring to the Brewsters. They own the property, but I also represent those that will be actually developing the property. I don't know how much of a report you want of our public meeting with adjacent property owners. We likewise had a public meeting. I won't go in great detail, only to say that it was a good turnout from the public there. The owners were there. And I'm sure we didn't answer or give what everybody wanted, but I think at the end of the meeting, the majority of what we heard when we left were glad to have had the meeting and got answers they were looking for. So I'm going to give you what we've done and what we did promise to the property owners there. And then if there are others here today that still have issues, I'll try my best to answer any questions that may come up after that. But there were concerns about traffic, of course, with this because of the connectivity. I think we've talked to you about this even when we were talking about zoning on this property. But obviously, we are making connection. There's a sign at the end of the street in Sedgefield that's always said there'd be a through street here, and so it's come to that time where the street will be extended. We have committed that construction traffic will come from Twin Beach. It will not come through Sedgefield, which I think is an obvious thing, but just to make sure, we'll ensure that does happen. Tree protection was another big thing. There's perimeter trees on this entire development on the east and north side. We have buffers and tree buffer easements, notations on the plat that no trees can be removed in those sections without permission from the city. We'll put that in the restricted covenants also. I don't know how beyond that what language we can possibly do. We can show it on the plat, we can note it, we can put it in restricted covenants, and hopefully that'll be good enough. Drainage issues were discussed. I know that we talked to that to some great lengths. This site is containing all of it. There's no drainage from this site going into Sedgefield. It's all going into our own detention pond. And Richard's here. He can obviously address any concerns that I think he's looked at the design and is fine with it. There were some other issues that I know the developers, you may hear about tonight, is related to fencing. We do not have any fencing called out on our plans, nor do we want to, unless you guys just insist. And quite honestly, we don't know who the builders will be on these lots. And in many cases, in many of the subdivisions, the builders will build and they're going to put fences in the rear yards anyway. But when you have a buffer along the back, then the question is, where does the fence go? Along the perimeter of the property or on the back property line of the property? And sometimes if you put them in both, then you're just going to have an alley between two fences with trees in it. So the developer would prefer not to and just defer that to the builders. If they want to put fences up in rear yards at that point, they can. Most all trees that you see on the site are going to be at the very perimeter of the property. They're not like on the lots themselves, the trees that would be protected. There were issues about amenities. Our project is not big enough to have pool, clubhouse of 28 lots. It just can't sustain that. So we are not putting it in. Of course, the neighbors are concerned about the fact they do have amenities and how do you keep our residents from going into their development? Well, we don't have an answer for that. I mean, it's a public street. You're going to have sidewalks. Obviously, people are going to walk. May not have been the best answer. I thought one of our guys did, from the owner's perspective, had a good answer. He said it might be to their advantage to offer memberships to the homeowners within our development to be able to use. That way, they at least get some revenue from it to help maintain their facility. But it'd be something they could offer that maybe the homeowners within this development might want to take advantage of. But we have green space. We have provided a plan for that. What we have also done, it'd be a nice manicured lawn in most of the area. Well, in fact, all of that area that we have shown as green space. We have added a walking trail that goes from basically the south end of the property. We'll go around that detention pond all the way up to the north side, ties back into our northern street, the hammerhead at the northern end, which would tie back into a sidewalk there. So you actually get a nice loop system of a trail added to the sidewalks on the streets. The sidewalk out on Twin Beach, I can only tell you that what we've done, we did add to the plans that were left off on Twin Beach. We've added the sidewalk along Twin Beach from the east end of our property line across our intersection up to a point, and we stopped. And then the developer, our engineer has met with Richard because I think the city also has a sidewalk project going on. And so we're trying to figure out, because of this massive drainage crossing on this road, where do you put this sidewalk at? And there's a guardrail there. I don't think anybody wants the sidewalk adjacent to the pavement at that point. So we're willing to put an easement along the front of the property for when that sidewalk does get put in, and once we determine where the best place for it to go. But we are willing to at least pave the sidewalks on Tween Beach Road at each end of our property up to the point where I think, Richard, the best way I could say it was, Jason was talking about there's a floodplain line there, and at least take it to that point and then work with you as far as what's going to happen beyond that. If you have any other questions, I don't know if I haven't covered it. If you have a question for me, I'll be glad to answer it, or I'll be glad to come back up if you have any
why don't I
other
open the
comments.
public hearing now, and then if any commissioners have questions, they can ask them then, and we might have something come up from the public. At this point, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. Let me on my list here. Alice Montero Faust-Davis? All right.
Hey, I live at 375 Barnling Street. And I'm here, my husband is here also. And I'm very happy to be the first person to address you all because our property will be most affected by the Long Branch subdivision. There are 3 houses where the backs are adjacent to our property, which is, in my opinion, not very attractive. But before I go into all this, I would like to tell you that I appreciate very much the fact that you all have to take in the objectives and the concerns of your existing residents, as well as the residents that are your future residents. And I appreciate your taking those concerns into account. Now, I have a letter, an email that I sent. Do you all have that email? I'd appreciate if you would get it out if you have it. If you can't find it, I have another copy.
It's attached to your packet.
We have it, yes, ma'am.
I also would like to present to you a copy of my plat, which is number 30 in Sedgefield, because it really has a bearing to 2 of the items that I have spoken to. I didn't want to, can you give this out? It's my plat. Our lot is number 30 in Sedgefield, and it is definitely adjacent to the subject property. Our lot is a pie-shaped lot, and it splays to the rear, to the southwest corner. And what our concern is regarding access from the subject property onto our property, and then subsequently to our common property in our Sedgefield neighborhood. Our common property is used and maintained by our subdivision and paid for by our subdivision for children's play, dog walking, exercise, and basically the recreation uses of our homeowners. Our lot shares historic trees on our south side. So when the gentleman just addressed you, and I'm going to speak to some of the things that he spoke about preserving the trees, half of those trees belong to our property, and half of the tree belongs to the subject property. So I share trees with the subject property. Our property, of course, as you know, is zoned R1. And being adjacent to the Long Branch subdivision with the backyards adjacent to our property, they have more density than we have. So what I am proposing, because I do not want, and I know we have connectivity and we're losing a lot of trees so that the road can go through, we're fine with that. And we're fine with the sidewalks and having neighbors and all that. But I really do not want the neighbors crossing my property with their dogs or the kids or whatever going on to the common property. We have a very large area of common property, which I think our president is going to address. So my proposal is for the developer to construct a shadow box fence, because we just heard, oh, well, the neighbors can put up a fence if they want. But what he's talking about is adjacent to my house. But if the developer puts a shadow box fence separating Long Branch from Sedgefield, but more importantly to me, separating Long Branch from my house, then it would stop people accessing over our property, and that southwest corner that you can see is just right next to their property, onto the common property. It would give us some security, and for the developer, it would be very good because it gives them privacy. And something that the developer may not know is that I also have 2 dogs, and we have an underground fence, and my dogs are out all the time. It's not that my dogs will access their property, but they will bark. They're going to bark the whole time that the construction's going on, but so be it. But without a fence, the developer goes to show the property, my dogs are going to be out there barking, and I wouldn't buy one of their houses with barking dogs right at their back door. So that's an intangible, but the developer should think about that. But it would give a lot more privacy to those lots, and it would be more appealing than facing 3 lots facing us. Another thing is that people coming to my home now will see backyards of other houses, and that is not very attractive, in my opinion. The next issue, oh, and I want to just mention, the gentleman just spoke about the meeting that we had, and we talked a lot about the common property, the Long Branch neighbors accessing the common property. And their answer was, well, just call the police. That's no answer, to call the police on new neighbors coming if they're walking across your property or they're accessing the common property. But when he was talking about what a wonderful meeting it was, but I didn't think it was all that great with that kind of comment. And the next thing is the drainage. Currently, there's a lot of drainage right now from the subject property that ends up on our property and goes into the drainage culvert. And if you look at the map, I'm sorry that they did not provide a map up here for you all to look. But the drainage, and I've had a lot of people look at this, I mean, it needs to be addressed, but the drainage, here we are on lot 30, everything is going right down, and a lot of it comes on our property, and it is right now going to flow onto the Sedgefield property. I cannot believe that they're saying that drainage would not be a problem. And one of the individuals that put on the meeting for Sedgefield said, oh, drainage won't be a problem. I said, well, right now it's draining on my property with all the vegetation that's on the subject property. He said, no, it's not. And I said, yes, it is, because I live there. And sometimes the water backs up to where it is now from that overflow culvert. It backs up onto our property. And certainly, we have a drainage easement, which is right there on our common property, which floods a lot. So the drainage is a significant problem. The next issue is, I know that they have marked all the trees on the side of the property between their property and our property that they're so graciously not going to cut down, but again, have
Ma'am, I don't mean to be rude, but normally we give about 3 minutes. and you're
Okay,
up to
well,
about
I'm
9
almost
now,
finished,
so-
but you know, I have the biggest concern because I'm the one that's adjacent to the property. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to
I understand, I'm just
be
saying.
taking your time, but this is extremely important, especially to me. But anyway, there is another tree that is not marked, which is on the subject property, and it is on my letter. It's the tree that is, shares roots with another tree that is fully on our property, and I hope that it is not cut down because it will ruin that tree on our property. And also, I need you all to address the temporary turnaround easement, because right now we're at the end of the street, and Fairhope has that turnaround easement. I would like to know how that is going to be addressed. And that's all really I have to say, and thank you very much, and I'm sorry I went over.
No, that's all right. One thing is, we don't have anywhere in our regulations with residential to residential to require fencing. We can suggest it to the developer and ask him, but ultimately, that's not something that's enforceable by us. But we will
Okay.
certainly ask about the marked trees, the water backup, and the turnaround easement.
Okay. Well, when you tell them that, tell them about my dogs, too. They bark a lot.
I think he heard you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Alex Correa.
Good evening, Alex Correa, 167 Sedgefield Avenue. Before I start, I want to thank Nancy, I want to thank Emily and Richard, everybody that we have dealt with the city of Fairhope for Sedgefield has been super helpful, and I want y'all to hear that. I'm not going to go over everything that Monty just talked about, but a couple things. I would like to get some clarification. Is it possible to go back to the plat that shows?
Unfortunately, that was my fault, like I said.
That's fine.
This is the
That's
first
good.
time
That's
I've
good.
done the
So if you look
presentation.
at the top of the proposed property, the lot that Monty and Bill have is the last one at the top. Okay? The area to the left of that attaches to our common area. If you look at the plat for the proposed development, there's approximately 100 feet past the end of the corner of their lot to the proposed development. The elevation, in just, if I'm reading the topo right on this, the elevation at the connection of Barnley to the corner of the proposed property goes from an elevation of approximately 90 feet to 74 feet. And that, I'm only pointing that out to try to emphasize our concern about the runoff and where it's going to go onto everybody's property, our common area and to their home.
So you're saying it's going from 90 at what location on this?
Where Barnling is going to tie in, May I?
The northwest corner of the subject property.
Here's the 3 lots that she was referring to. Here's Barnley.
Right.
Okay? The elevation where Barnley is going to tie in is right at 90 feet. The elevation in this corner down here is 74 feet.
Okay.
That's a pretty good, significant. I'm not sure, and I don't understand what the buffer's going to be to stop that water, if that's clear. The other question that we had is, the street that's coming in to extend Barnling looks to me like it's somewhere between 700 and 800 feet. I'm not, and I'm not sure that one calming device, and this was already raised, but one calming device for that whole street, all the way from County Road 44 to Sedgefield Avenue, is going to be sufficient.
What is our requirement, 1 per 600 feet?
Like so.
660.
For their development, we have 660. What they're asking is closer to the tie-in.
And
Closer to the tie-in.
the issue that, and we got a lot of help on this before, but the issue that we ran into to put another speed calming device on Sedgefield Avenue was a problem when you start looking at intersecting streets and you start looking at driveways and you start looking at where you can put a speed calming device. That became a real challenge, and we gave up on that because it wasn't practical. We appreciate the fact that the developer is saying that there will be no construction traffic coming into this area, the new area off of Sedgefield Avenue. That's great. Our experience is, we've heard that before, and we would request, and we made this request at the meeting that we had, if that occurs, that a temporary barricade be placed where that new street ties in to prevent any construction traffic during construction coming through Sedgefield. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, we're asking that something be done to prevent it on a temporary basis during construction. I'm not sure what the discussion was about buffers. I don't understand buffers.
There's a stream, there is a stream in the northeast corner and then northwest corner, and then cuts across, it flows along the lots to the west of the property. And so it flows down and then circles back into that area where you see the culverts and all that along Twin Beach. And so they put a 50-foot stream buffer along that so that it is marked. Stream buffer right here and right here. Okay. From the top of bank.
Again, there's a big elevation change here, and it's a concern. The water's got to go somewhere. I would like to verify, and I asked this question, I think I got it right when we had the meeting before with the developer, that any subsurface drainage is not going to tie into any subsurface drainage in Sedgefield. Is that right? Okay, thank you, Richard. I don't know anything about lift stations. We're not going to have one, right? Are they going to have one?
I'll ask that
Yes.
question.
Yes, they will have one close to Twin Beach Road.
It'll be close to Twin Beach Road.
Yeah, down the hill.
Okay.
Let me clarify a little bit about these lift stations now. The ones that we experience the most odor with are the ones that collect sewer from low-pressure sewer systems that have grinder pumps on them.
I don't know anything about them. I just, from the conversation here this evening, it concerns me a little bit about odor or whatever, and I don't know anything about it. That's the only reason I asked.
Right. Well, the lift station on the south edge of the property is close to Twin Beach Road.
Okay, thank you. Again, the only other comment that I would like to make is, yes, we did have a meeting for Sedgefield, and the engineers were there. our suggestion, and I've heard this tonight more than once, the developer needs to be at the meeting, because the engineers can answer the engineering questions. But when residents have questions that the engineers can't answer, you're getting half of a meeting. So our suggestion is, in the future, it not just be the engineers, it be someone from the developer who can answer questions and make commitments would be very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, yes, sir. Would anybody else wish to speak to this item? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak. I was at the previous meeting as well. Now, I got the 3-minute message, so I'll be quick. I had about 6 questions.
If you could state your name and your address.
Yes, Ron Levine, L-A capital V-I-G-N-E. I'm Cajun, not Jewish. Thank you. No problem with that. They just have the money, and money's what I'm concerned about here, the value of my property. 115 Sedgefield. Now, my 3-minute start.
That's too of a go.
I'm not brilliant, so the difference between R1 and R2 encompasses what in a brief?
How large the lots are.
Right, okay, good. But they're still single-family dwellings. My questions that we had at that meeting, no disrespect to the developer, were the engineer said, well, that's not our area. So I left there with no more knowledge than I had when I got there. Minimum square footage of the homes to be developed is an important feature, because as being adjacent, a lot of people are going to look at it like it's an expansion of Sedgefield. So from the interior when they come into Sedgefield. So our values are impacted by the values of the homes being built in the proposed development. So I'm still trying to find out what's the minimum square.
We're not allowed to ask that.
You can, right, but the developer could.
If he wants to.
Right,
I mean,
I know.
It's got nothing to do with our regulations.
So there's no way to determine what the estimated value of those homes?
How this values your property is not,
right.
I'm sorry to say, I mean, obviously we
Of course,
care,
yeah,
but-
it's
but
vital to the neighborhood,
as far as the size or the restrictive covenants or what they do, whether it's as stringent as what you all have, we don't get into that.
So as a community, Fairhope has no determination of what can be built in an adjacent property?
No, I mean, we have determination of what they can build whatever's in the R2 zoning. Okay. They can't put a trailer in there, they can't put a apartment in there, it's got to meet the R2 zoning. But the R2 zoning, as far as I know, does not have any minimum house sizes. I would assume a developer is probably going to have some minimums himself, though. Because, they obviously want to make money and want to make as much as they can.
Sure, I understand that, and there's a need for all values of homes. It's just that mine's already built, and it will definitely be impacted by the adjacent homes. So,
but the last group didn't want their property values to go up. Now, you don't want your property value to go down, so
no, I don't want it to go down. You're absolutely right.
I don't know who can we make happy, but I'd rather my property value go up, I think.
Mine is a large part of my retirement plan. I'm 78. My wife is stage 4 cancer in her second year of battle.
Oh, sorry to hear
I've got tremendous heart problems. So along the line here, my home will be sold to help fund the remainder of our lives. So it's vital to us. Now, when the banks pull the comps on the adjacent homes, when that time comes, and there's no way to tell what those values are going to be, then you understand where I'm coming from.
Of course.
I want my home to at least maintain its current value.
Right.
So, but again, I'm leaving this meeting without any kind of answers on that.
Well, those aren't questions that we can answer.
I got that. I mean, I understand that. I didn't know that before the meeting.
Right.
But hopefully they'll build decent-sized homes, so. Anyway,
I can ask the developer, and he can volunteer to answer if he wants, but I can't require him to answer that. If he just wants to say that as a good neighbor.
One final question. Alex mentioned that in that meeting, we were told, yeah, we can build a barrier or establish a temporary barrier to keep concrete mixers and things from running down the roads where the kids are playing. You know, not my children, but neighbors have small children, and tearing up the turns, the entranceways and things. And we were told, yes, we can put a barrier up. I never heard we will put a barrier up.
I think the point of that is if you were a concrete mixer, you wouldn't want to drive through Sedgefield and add an extra 5 minutes to your delivery time.
Maybe, because when they expanded the backside, we had all the construction traffic on Sedgefield Avenue. So hopefully they will put the barrier up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all for your time.
Yes, sir, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Stephen, I won't ask you, but if you would like to tell him what the size of the houses will be, you can.
I can only say what was said in the meeting. He's absolutely right, and I'm glad you said it. This is the hardest part that I have in this job. I've been doing it for 30-something years. Everybody wants to know what kind of homes are going to be built, and when we do subdivisions, that's just not part of the process. And many times, the developers don't know who's going to build the home, so they don't. They will put in their restrictive covenants, typically, a minimum home size, and they haven't even established that yet. So, but I can assure these folks with the cost of development, cost of land, these homes will be pricey. They won't have to worry about values going down. These homes probably be at a higher price point than what they've got in their own subdivision. I can say that.
I can't ask you.
The barricade, it will be put in. We did make that commitment at Sedgefield, and hopefully that will work for what they want. The drainage, Richard may have to do this because it doesn't seem to come from us as a matter of being understood, but the contours run, if you will, parallel to our road down to the drainage area that Nancy was pointing out to you. We are not taking any drainage from our development to Sedgefield. There is an inlet box in front of, and I forgot the lady's name, but the first house adjacent to our site, there is a drainage box in front. We're not connecting to it. There's a break in our roadway at the Sedgefield property line sloping away from her property. There will be no drainage through the roadway connection being directed to Sedgefield roadways. I don't know if I can say that any clearer unless Richard can get up and speak to it, but no trees. She was concerned about a tree not being marked. As I said, we will not be cutting any trees in that easement buffer area unless the city finds that it's a diseased tree, and they would have to be the ones to tell us we could do it. We can't do it otherwise. We will take a few trees out just where the roadway connection. We did meet with Paul Merchant to discuss the value of keeping. There's a clump of trees right where the roadway, whether we go around it, but there's a 50-inch oak tree to the side. If we try to save those, we're going to lose it. So a decision was made with him about what should be taken out, and that decision's been made. So something had to come out in order to make the connection.
Okay. A question was asked about traffic calming.
We've already made one commitment to one speed, and if Richard feels like there's another one that needs to be put in, I'm sure the developer will do whatever's required.
So you'll have one speed bump in your section then?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if another one needs to be added, I just know this developer will put it in.
Sure. Commissioners, any further questions for the engineer? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, one more thing. I just want to be clear. There were 68 Ventures as the developer. There were 4 members from 68 Ventures at the meeting. The developer was present. More so than us engineers. There were only 2 of us there, but there were 4 of the owners there. So I just want to be sure you understand that at that meeting, our owners were present at that meeting.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. Case SD 19.15, I move that we approve subject staff recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Robert. All right, next item on the agenda is a public hearing to consider the request of Roberts Brothers LLC for a multi-occupancy project approval for a 9-unit project on State Highway 181 just south of Hollowbrook. Does this go to the city council after us?
It does not.
Okay, so this is, comes to us, and by the way, in most areas, this would not come to a city area, but this is just Fairhope trying to be transparent.
That's right.
Nobody is listed to speak to this item, but we will open the public hearing in just a few moments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief tonight. I'm pinch hitting for Mr. King, who is at class. So I'll be pinch hitting for him. As you stated, this is a multiple occupancy project permit for this. As you know from your subdivision regulations, if you have 3 or more units, it requires the MOP, as we call it, approval. This property is in unzoned, unincorporated Baldwin County. It's near the intersection of 104 and 181. It does abut the Hollowbrook subdivision. The property is 1.62 acres. The total units here that are proposed are 9. They have about 12.4% of green space. And again, this is unzoned in Baldwin County. I won't go through the staff report because you have it in front of you. Buford's done a good job of going through the requirements and outlining those in red and in blue. I will add that we do have several conditions. These are pretty typical conditions that we have in most of the projects. And I'll read through those and would ask that you, if you approve this, that you approve this with these conditions. The first one is the flow model data. And Richard might can speak to this. They are installing a new 12-inch water main, so I don't think the water will be a problem. But because that is being installed, they can't do the flow model yet, but I believe that will be satisfied. Also, number 2, as-built construction documents for Phase 1 shall be furnished, and that will be attained for their CO, which is the CO is kind of our way of ensuring that all these things are done. They will not get a CO until we look at it and we approve it. So the second condition. Third condition is the screening and buffering requirements. The fourth condition is the submission of their O&M plan for the maintenance of their drainage system. And then the fifth condition is about green space requirements. They show green space near 181. Some of that cannot be used. However, they have an oversupply of green space, and we don't anticipate that being a problem, but that just needs to be updated and reflected prior to them getting their CO. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, we do recommend approval, subject to the conditions that have been stated.
This is commercial, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Any questions? If not, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Nobody has requested to speak, but would anybody like to speak to this item from the public? If not, I will close the public hearing. Larry, is this yours?
Yes.
Commissioners, are there any questions of Larry? If not, I will accept a motion.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to approve subject to the staff regulations.
I didn't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was about to say, this is the easiest one of the night.
Oh, you're slipping out.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Case SD 19.16, Robert's office building. I move we approve staff recommendations.
A second.
I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
All right, I'm gonna walk back now.
Is that the only reason you came here tonight?
I got you, bro.
All right, next item on the agenda, SD 1917, public hearing to request of Donald and Marlene Messler for a plat approval of re-subdivision of Lot 1 Taylor Oaks, a 2-lot minor subdivision. Yes, sir.
Good evening. As you said, it's a 2-lot minor subdivision in the Taylor Oaks subdivision. On the screen, you can see on the left a copy of the zoning map, and on the right is an aerial overhead. And you'll notice you can see more clearly on the zoning map how this lot is about twice the size of the other lots that are in this neighborhood. We'll get to that in just a second. So this is a minor subdivision. It's creating 2 half-acre lots in a previously developed subdivision. The applicants purchased what they believe are 2 separate lots in the late 1990s and have provided an original sketch that showed the current property as 2 separate lots and the lots were conveyed as one piece of property, and the plat was recorded that reflected the same. Both of these lots do meet the requirements of R1 zoning per Fairhope's zoning ordinance. They are requesting a waiver from Article 5, Section E.3 that states that all lots shall front upon a paved, publicly maintained street. They wish to subdivide the property on Dovecote Lane, which is a paved street, but is not a public road. So they've requested a waiver from the requirement and provided documentation for why it's necessary. Have a copy of their narrative on the screen. I'll read it real quick. It's they considering a request for a minor subdivision of Lot 1 in Taylor Oak subdivision. We purchased two lots 20 years ago. We were the first to buy 2 lots in the subdivision. Although we bought 2 1/2 acre lots, the developer conveyed them as one lot, probably for convenience. All the other lots of the subdivision are 1/2 acre. We're aware that Dovecote Lane is a private road, would request that it be subdivided along Taylor Street, which is a public road, but we do not want to disrupt the treasured trees and the stone wall along Taylor Street. The original plan for the subdivision was to have 2 separate lots along Dovecote Lane. We are making our request in keeping with the original plan because it would be best serve the interest of everyone in the Taylor Oak subdivision. And there they provided pictures of the emblem of the Fairhope treasure trees that are on some of the oak trees that are on Taylor Street. If you've ever been down that street, you know it's heavily wooded with large oak trees. Also note that the Properties Association met on March 10th in 2019 and voted unanimously in favor to have this subdivision on Dovecote Lane as opposed to Taylor Street. And we received a letter by mail or an email stating the same thing, concerned to please to preserve the trees and the wall and everything that's on Taylor Street. There's a copy of the sketch plat that they had showing that the lots were initially 2 lots, along with pictures of the trees and the stone wall that is along Taylor Street. And a copy of the proposed subdivision creating the 2 lots on Dovecote Lane. And I thought it was important to highlight there's 2 water meters that are already on this lot. As the original plan was to have 2 lots, water service was provided for 2 separate lots. So there will not be any issues there. Staff recommendation is for approval of SD 19.17, conditional upon the waiver request from the subdivision regulation, Article 5, Section E.3 be approved as well. Any questions, I'd be happy to.
Any questions? Ken, you don't have any heartburn, I hope, on that, because it seems like a win-win to me.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Nobody listed their name to speak. Would anybody like to speak to this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing and turn this over to commissioners.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further?
Excuse me.
With the condition.
With the waiver, yes. I have a motion to approve with the waiver due to the fact that we're trying to save the treasured trees and the wall and the whole look of that entire community, which is beautiful out there. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is SD 1918, public hearing to request of Joseph and Glenda Gravely for a plat approval of the re-subdivision of Lot 4, Bay Echo subdivision, a 3-lot minor division. The property is located at the south terminus of North Mobile Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm pinch hitting for Mr. King tonight on this one. The request before you tonight is a 3-lot minor subdivision for Lot 4 of Echo Bay subdivision. They have asked for a waiver from the lot access requirements. As your staff report goes into great detail, this is a very complicated minor subdivision. And again, I want to say that I think the minor subdivision we need to talk about. But the staff recommendation is this, is that we request this be tabled for further study. The waiver request for access, there are 2 areas where these lots would access a street. One of those streets is we are not clear as to the access and who has the rights to access that. That has been a subject of litigation through the years. If you look at your staff report, there is a letter from Mr. Wynn, the city attorney, regarding this property. And so we have concerns. We spoke about this with Ken. As you can see from your packet, there's a letter or some correspondence between Ken about that. And so that is something that we have a great concern about. The neighbors have been concerned about this access, and it's the Davis Lane Drive access issue there. So that's the first access issue that we have concerns. Again, the status of that Davis Lane / Davis Drive, in our mind, has not been rectified for clear legal access to the property. So we believe that needs further study, further analysis of that, especially in light of the litigation that's been surrounding that over the years. The other issue is access from Mobile Street, and speaking with, as you all know, we gather as staff from utilities, from Public Works, and discuss each application while we're developing our staff reports. One of the issues that we found is that there's a great deal of water that comes off Mobile Street going to the subject property, to the point where we believe that some sort of stormwater management must be done to this property. And that's been the letter from Mr. Wynn sort of references from 2015. And so what we are suggesting is that for this to be approved, there needs to be some sort of stormwater requirements met to alleviate the problem. I believe the city had some proposals 3 or 4 years ago to fix the stormwater issue. However, when you start doing infrastructure improvements for stormwater, it takes this out of the minor category and makes it a major subdivision by the definition in our subdivision regulations. So we feel like two things which we believe support the tabling of this issue. One is, again, the access issue on Davis Lane, Davis Drive. We don't feel like it's very clear, and if Ken wants to jump in at some point, he can as well and kind of explain maybe a little bit of that. So we have that issue for Lot 3, which is the one that's to the east, and then also, again, the South Mobile Street terminus and the water issue and the stormwater, trying to alleviate that problem, which again would require a major subdivision and would kick this out of the minor category. So again, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have about this, but that's our recommendation to table it. And I believe if you read the staff report, it says it may take more than 30 days. We don't want to limit this to the next meeting because these are very complicated, difficult issues that have to be solved, and we're not sure if that can be done in 30 days or not.
Two questions, Mr. Chairman. Whose responsibility is a stormwater issue?
Typically, it's going to, if it's coming onto your property, you have to handle your own stormwater out. Now, I'll defer to Richard too. He can support this as well. But when you have stormwater coming to your property, you have to account for that.
But did you not just say that the stormwater coming onto this property is coming off of Mobile Street?
Yes.
All right. Who put Mobile Street in?
Mobile Street was put in many, many years ago.
Well, that's not wasn't the question. It's who put it in? Was it a city program?
I do not know.
Okay. Well, my point is, it doesn't seem to me, and I've seen this in numerous occasions around the county where you've got either the county or municipality dumping water across a private landowner, creates a massive gully effect. And the thought that the landowner is responsible for something like that is ludicrous to me. That's number one. Okay. So number two, I see what you're saying about Taylor, or was it Taylor Street?
Davis.
Davis Lane. And I understand the issue. The question I've got is, has anybody looked at the prospects of bringing a lane from or the south terminus of Mobile Street across Lot 2 to access Lot 3 and taking them all back out that way?
Mr. Dice, what we look at is what's been presented to us. We had some discussions with the realtor for this property. We discussed various methods. What we looked at is what's been requested.
I understand, but I'm just trying to look at a prospective solution to at least one or two issues right now. So anyway, that's two questions I got. And you answered me. Thank you very much.
Now let me answer the stormwater issue. I mean, I believe if you have a stormwater problem that we know, I think that this body has to consider that stormwater issue. I don't think it's whether it's coming from here or there. If it's coming onto your property, you have to deal with that somehow. Mm-hmm. And with a minor subdivision, as you know, it means nothing's required.
Right.
We have a known stormwater issue that's in our minds significant enough for us to require some further analysis of it. Us knowing that and knowing the fact that if it's a minor, nothing's done about it, I think that concerns staff fairly significantly. which is the reason why we're requesting this be tabled for analysis, so that can be dealt with in the appropriate way and have it looked at, and
Who would be looking at it?
I think from our perspective, it would be our engineers and also the developer's engineers, trying to find an amicable solution to solve the stormwater problem.
Okay.
Do we need to get the approval of the developer to do that?
Well, the next meeting is beyond the 30 days. And I reckon, is there going to be any new utility mains extended to the subdivision?
From the public utilities?
Yes.
I don't believe.
Excuse me, Ken, what was that question?
We're kind of in between here. It's apparent, this application apparently was made as a minor subdivision, meaning there aren't any new streets and there aren't any new utility mains. The city seems to be more of the view that it should be treated as a major subdivision, but as tendered to you, it's a minor subdivision, so we're dealing with preliminary plat and final plat at the same time. There is a 30-day limit on the time that application can be pending from the time you open a public hearing. So if we're going to table it to the next meeting, which would be beyond 30 days, or even for longer, because there are some complicated issues here. If we're going to extend it out further than not 30 days by virtue of tabling it, then we should get the developer's consent, otherwise it needs to be denied, if that's the commission's view.
Well, if they're here, they could pull it, right?
Sorry?
They could pull it, right?
They can pull it, as long as we haven't, did you open the public hearing?
No.
If a public hearing is not open, that's right, it can still be pulled.
Mr. Chairman, let me make, so they've asked for 2 waivers. The one waiver is about access on Davis Lane, Davis Drive. The other waiver is that we require publicly maintained paved street access. Mobile Street coming to this property is gravel, it's not paved. And probably should go through some slides so you can see the photos. This is Mobile Street, so it's not paved. We require it to be a publicly paved access street. Now, there is some belief that the neighborhood does not want it paved. Again, that's something that I think could be rectified from our perspective, but the drainage issue is by far our foremost concern. So, but when you have to install infrastructure, like a drainage infrastructure, that by our definition in the subregs, it makes that a major subdivision, which changes the criteria that we'll review it by. And so again, our concern is access for Davis Lane, Davis Drive, and that the complicated nature of that. If you see, let's see, I don't see Davis Drive, but when Rich and I were out there looking at it, some neighbors came to us and expressed their concerns. There's a big disagreement about the access through that lane. It's 30 feet or it's 15 feet.
So what you're really telling us is that the recommendation isn't to postpone. The recommendation as it sits would be to deny, but out of the goodness of the planning department's hearts, you're saying rather than deny, give the developer a chance to request that we postpone it until a couple issues are worked out that y'all currently feel like we should deny it because of. They're not worked out.
And I think that's partly right. I think the first issue with Davis Lane, Davis Drive, I mean, that's going to be more of a legal issue that has to be worked out, and that's how I see that. There's been litigation, there's been, a lot of litigation about that, which I don't think from the planning staff and the planning commission staff, planning commission perspective, I think that's something that needs to be looked at from a legal perspective, and does that meet the requirements that we have, and what does that past litigation mean? As far as the infrastructure improvements that we believe are necessary for us to do our job, making sure that there's no harm to adjoining property owners or anybody else, I think that in and of itself will change this application from a minor to a major. So yes, we believe this should be a major subdivision again, and so that would make this minor application, it would nullify it basically, and we would hope that it would be a major. And we would have to treat it that way because of our definition of a major subdivision, because infrastructure is being installed. And we've had that issue before where we have what would technically be a minor subdivision because of the number of lots, but because you're installing utility infrastructure, be it water, sewer, whatever it is, or drainage improvements, that by definition kicks it into a major category of a subdivision.
So
which
would
again
that
changes the
require-
criteria.
Require a new application?
Probably so.
All right.
Yes, because we have a major right now.
Let's bring Larry up.
Couple
and see what
questions.
his-
Thank y'all, and again, thanks staff for your thorough review. First off, there was some of the stuff that was in y'all's packet that I never even saw. The letter from the attorney with all of his concerns. We were given a snippet of the concerns, but it would have been helpful to get that. But I think,
Just to be clear, that letter's from 2015. The letter from Tut Wynn was from 2015.
no, not that letter. That letter is in regards to drainage. I was talking about the letter that's in the packet that came, yeah, from Ken, the email from Ken.
And just to be clear, that probably should not have been included because that is attorney-client communications. But it was included in your packet, so it is what it is.
All right. Well, thank you for that. But as I see it, we have two major issues, and Mr. Dias kind of hit on the reason we wanted to come before y'all is because we just have a difference of opinion on who is responsible for the drainage improvements. Do we need to be responsible for what's being done on our lot? Yes. But the city saw fit to actually hire an engineer here in town to design a storm system to carry North Mobile runoff back in 2014 and carry it through a bunch of different properties and take it over to Gayfer Court, and had the proposal put out, had a design done, and they couldn't get all the easements put together to make the project work. So my question is that died. We've got the letter. He referenced it. It was the letter from Wynn. We've got the design that Richard so kindly shared with me, and we also found it in other documents. If the city can't get the easements together from the adjacent property owners, what chance do we have of trying to put this together? And this was not a small drainage improvement. This was a major drainage improvement project that was proposed by the city. And I've got copies of that. I don't know if y'all actually have the plan. It's the last page in this letter from Wynn. The last page is the actual drainage plan. The letter is referencing not being able to get the deal to work out because of lack of participation from the owners.
It's hard to tell on here, but generally, what does this do? It goes down the street and then across several different lots?
So if you're looking at the drawing with the engineer's logo at the top right, on the far right-hand corner is the end of North Mobile. They'll be picking up runoff actually, that's further up North Mobile. They'll be picking up with an inlet there. There'll be an inlet at the end of the gravel road. It will jog across our subject property and then enter and cross over a couple other pieces of property. My understanding is they were not able to secure one of the easements to make this happen. I mean, we're more than willing to grant an easement across our property, either with this design or to take it along the property to get it down to the bay. But the city saw an issue well before our property was looking at being developed. They went and procured a design for it, and now that we're coming, we're being asked to take this burden on, something that was already a known entity. And so I understand when a development comes, we've got to handle our runoff. And we've got to allow the water to pass that comes across our property. But to actually do a whole infrastructure design to handle the city's runoff and install it for an existing issue, that just seems to me a little burdensome on the developer. And so that was one of the reasons I wanted to be before y'all tonight, is kind of discuss that and figure out, is that truly the position the city has? I didn't see it that way.
Well, Larry, so I'm just trying to understand this drawing. This thing takes it all the way to Gayfer Court,
Yes, sir.
but it doesn't turn it down like a property line and take it down the bluff on the subject property.
That's correct.
Why? Do you have any idea?
I was not involved with the design. That could very well be an option.
There's a little ditch stream on Caper Court. They were probably trying to catch it into there rather than, you know, have an erosion spot coming down over the top and building a gully. Be my guess. Which is worth about a dime.
Yeah. But that would have been my assumption as well, why they were going that direction. They might not want to get into the bluff, would have been another reason.
Yeah, but they're going, it appears the further south you come, they're going down the bluff anyway, looking at the topo. I mean, look at the topo.
Yeah.
That's where you get to Gaffer Court.
Yeah.
Larry, I kind of think you probably ought to postpone it based on the staff's, you know, at least for 30 days based on the staff's review.
And now I'll do a quick conference with my clients, but I just wanted to get y'all's opinion on this, because I think we might end up at an impasse on this if the city's positions we have to install what was a city designed storm system.
Yeah,
is that really the burden of the developer?
I agree, and I have a lot of feelings like, you know, maybe a little differently than that, but I think 30 days where I'd like to walk the property a little more.
Yeah.
You know, I've just kind of been there, but I didn't look at it as well as I should have. Matter of fact, I'm pretty familiar. I own some lots just on the bay right below there, and so I thought I knew the property better than I did, but it looks like some work's been done since the last time I was on that part of the property. So I like to go kind of look at it and research it some more personally.
And then the other question that you had is, yes, they're more than willing to give an easement if Davis Lane can't be rectified. We've looked at all the documents too. Davis Lane shows up on the existing subdivision plat. There's other easements that are even older than Davis Lane that do have the benefit of our property. They don't make up Davis Lane, but there's a current access easement on the south side of the lot of Davis Lane that is to the benefit of our property. It's a 15-foot access easement. We don't propose to try to utilize it, but there are several easements that are already touching this property other than Davis Lane, because North Mobile used to not extend all the way to where it does now. It used to stop further up. And if you see some of the documents that were submitted, it shows where the right-of-way for North Mobile was granted, and then some of the easements were vacated. More specifically, one of the ones on Lot 3 of Bay Echo was vacated when North Mobile right-of-way was extended. But all these lots had access easements off of Gayfer in the beginning before North Mobile ever reached that property. And so some of those easements are still in place that still touch our affected parcel. But we're more than willing to bring an easement along lot number 2 to access lot number 3 if that's something that y'all are willing to consider.
Okay.
Can we go back to the vicinity map, Wayne?
Sure.
Larry might have just touched on it. There seems to be a landlocked lot to the north of
That right there?
Lot 3. Yeah. So you got those two lots that are north of Lot 3. I guess Lot 2 and 3. Now, one appears to be at the end of Davis Lane. Is it access from Davis Lane?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I also, and I appreciate what Larry's saying. I think we have 2 waiver requests. I think either one of those will drastically change the application. The first request about Davis Lane, I'm going to point out, if I can direct you to page 3 of your staff report, in the last section under the comments, and this is what's written in there. It says, this lane has not been accepted for maintenance by the city of Fairhope. It's a 15-foot lane, not accepted for maintenance by the city of Fairhope, and there's a waiver request for that. So to me, that's sort of a threshold issue for Lot 3, which is what they want through its 3 lots. If the Planning Commission is not favorable of granting that waiver request, I think it changes the whole application anyway. So I just want to point that out to you. Now, again, we would like the opportunity to kind of sit down again and try to go over this with the developer and the applicant and try to find some solution to this if it exists. That's why we requested the tabling to the next Planning Commission meeting. I think the next Planning Commission occurs later than 30 days. And so we would need to, any kind of request at table would need to be to the next planning commission meeting. And then we could potentially, they could bring you an update as far as where we're at with that. And then maybe at that meeting, there could be some decision on which way to go with this. I will tell you that our concern with, especially with Davis Lane, is there's been a lot of litigation, and I think whatever happens, there's going to be further litigation. And so we want to make sure that we are acting on all the information that we can gather, and that we can make a informed, educated decision about how to handle that issue and the waiver issue.
Yes, sir.
And I'll try to be succinct, just to kind of to put you in the mindset. Think about this in the same terms as what we just talked about Long Branch. Long Branch's development can't do anything about the flow that comes out of Sedgefield and flows south. By no means am I stating to you as a planning commission that we have to put the burden on what's already flowing to that property to be managed by this application. It has to be addressed, meaning that the water is not going to go another direction. It's going to flow south at this point and continue to flow south at this point. But the thing that I think we have to burden is that there's a singular piece of property that's being requested to be divided into 3 distinct pieces of property that will be developed each individually with a home site. There has to be a plan that we can state as your staff that they have accounted for the drainage and runoff produced by the development, not what's being produced by existing conditions, but by the development. Because frankly, I wasn't here, but as I understand it, the city stepped up, spent the money on the engineering to come up with a solution that was plaguing those people who were south of this property, and it got rejected because they would not participate in granting easements required for that solution. And our attorney put a letter that says we're done. We're absolved of any sins, okay? But in this case, we as a planning commission, if this is going to develop into 3 residential lots, it needs to account for its drainage, not for Mobile Street drainage, its drainage. It has the ability to collect the drainage produced by these home sites. It has the ability to direct that drainage, and it has the ability to get it discharged to the bay because they own property all the way to the bay. That's what I'm looking to be able to stand before you, is that we're sorry for what the current conditions are, and they're historical, meaning that area of Mobile Street probably has remained relatively unchanged for a quarter of a century. Water's been flowing that direction all that time. But what I'm saying is that by asking to increase the magnitude of development from going from 1 piece of property to 3 developable pieces of property, these 3 have to be designed in a way to manage their stormwater and get it so that it's not increasing the problem downstream. Not asking them to solve it, but we want to be able to stay before you as a staff that through engineering, design, and construction, they are not adding to the problem. They are managing their own stormwater. That's the expectation. That's the most I can do for you as an engineer working for you, is to say that they have addressed what they're going to generate. Hadn't addressed what's already historically there, but what the development of these lots is addressed. And it may be where they can do bioretention and manage it on their property. They got a lot of land here to work with. And that's what we're looking to at least get some feedback from the developer and his engineer. Can a solution that we stand before you saying they've addressed the impact of their development? Not that they've addressed the impact of the development that's gone on for the last 50, 60 years upstream, but for these 3 lots. And that's just that's my position there, that we need to be, set that standard. And we did it just, not that last meeting at the 3 lots on the golf course down off of Section Street. They had to address drainage, they had to, address infrastructure. I don't see any difference in this case. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Well, Larry, it's up to you. I can open the public hearing and we can have a vote, or y'all can request that we put it off for 30 days and get some more information.
Mr. Chairman, would you let me talk? I'm part of the application. I'm not part of the public.
Sure.
But I have a couple of things that I would like to add. Number one, there are 2 or 3 people.
Before I sit down, can I finish the?
Sure.
I would just want to follow up on what Richard said, because I do understand exactly what he said, but that's not what was asked of us. What was asked of us was to handle the water that's coming off of North Mobile and to handle our runoff. We have no problem with handling our runoff, but that's not what was asked of us. I mean, every minor subdivision is going to increase the burden That's why we have to put notes on these minor subdivisions that drainage will be handled at the time of building permit. That's why I've been helping with Mr. Cortinas coming up with different design guides that can be implemented on these lots that are being developed as they come through that will have low impact development techniques. I've been creating some standard details for them. We understand that portion of it, but that's not what got us here today. And so if that's all we're being asked of is to handle the runoff from our development, that's not an issue. I mean, and we've already got notes on the plat saying we've got to do that. It's handling North Mobile that causes me the concern because that's a major drainage improvement project. So that's all I wanted to say.
I just want to add that you need to take into consideration that the property is owned by Ms. Gravely. These are new purchasers with a different idea for what they want to do with the property. They want to make 3 lots, and I will say that during the 2.5, 3 year period where we were trying to sell this piece of property, not anybody came and said, I'd like to buy 7.5 acres and build 1 house. If they did do that, they would still have access from North Mobile Street. They'd also have access from Davis Lane. Those are platted existing easements that were granted in 1985. I do want to point out, while I get a chance to talk, that the reason that when these people came to ask about building houses and subdividing this property, the plan that I first brought up was exactly pretty much what you're looking at, because that exact same thing happened on Lot 1. This is Lot 4, Bay Echo. Lot 1 was divided into 3 lots, just like we're proposing to divide Lot 4 in 1985. Planning Commission reviewed it.
Look, we can go on to the history a lot, and I don't mean to be rude,
no.
but y'all can either ask me to open the public hearing, and you can present what you're presenting, and we can vote, or we can give y'all 30 days to talk about it. But if you're going to present your presentation, then then I need to open the public hearing at the end of the time. And if we're going to spend an hour on this thing and we're going to vet it, then we're going to have a vote. If y'all want to get together and talk to the city and see if you can, find some common ground with the staff in the next 30 days, like they're suggesting, that's what I think we ought to do. I like to personally walk the property a little bit better myself and look at it more closely, but I mean, it's up to y'all. But I mean, with the staff concerns, I don't think you're going to say anything that's going to make me just all of a sudden care less about what our staff engineer says and our city planner says.
And for that reason, we know we do want to table it.
Okay.
But it's important in that here we are tonight, this application has been in for quite a while, knowing that the biggest problem with drainage is that we would have
I like to walk the property with Larry and you and get down there and y'all, I can see it, touch it, feel it, and smell it that way. And I'd be glad to go, walk the property with you, and you can tell me everything then, but right now I just don't think it's an appropriate time if we don't open the public hearing.
That'll be fine. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
But we did have some people in the neighborhood that wanted to speak tonight, and I'm glad to come back.
Yeah, if I open the public hearing, then we gotta vote on it.
Do we need Ken, do we need a motion to do that?
No,
We just
no
go
public hearings been opened, technically it's withdrawn.
Okay.
To be
All right,
put on the agenda at another.
Is it tabled or withdrawn?
Table the next meeting?
Withdrawn. You could only vote to table it once we open the public meeting, and then you would take whatever action you take. If no public hearing is opened, and it's basically agreed with the developer to come up at another meeting, then it's technically withdrawn, not tabled.
Okay.
Well, technically, can they come back in May?
Yes.
If it's withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, next item on the agenda is final plat approval for Twin Beach Estates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. As you know, this began as a Twin Beach Estates PUD. This was heard several times. Ultimately, the PUD was approved. Their preliminary plat was approved, and tonight is their final plat. We have been out, staff has been out and looked at it. We have a punch list, which is pretty typical. So we recommend approval of this, subject to the punch list items being addressed, which again are fairly typical things, not a big deal. And then also that the warranty period for the sewer lift station shall not commence until the lift station pumps are installed and the wet well to the satisfaction of the Fairhope Utilities Water and Sewer Superintendent. So the punch list and then the lift station issue. That's our only conditions, and we recommend approval subject to those.
All right, and this is, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Does anybody from the public wish to speak to this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing. I see the developer back there. Thanks for your patience sitting through all of this. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the developer?
Nope.
On this item? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Make a
Case
motion.
SD 19.20 Twin Beach Estates, I move.
You over.
We approve it, subject to staff recommendations.
I've got a motion. Do I have?
heard me.
She was trying to make a motion.
Well, I'm sorry.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
I could withdraw my motion.
No, please don't. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Emily, I love you, but please don't get onto my motion maker because he's truly the only one that makes it. We'll be here all night.
All right, Howard, you're up for the next 6.
Oh, boy.
All right, next item is ZC public hearing to consider the request of the City of Fairhope Planning Department. This is working on the definition of waterfront lots, and if you dig to the bottom of your packet, it's
Sorry, out of order.
it's on the bottom of your packet. Yes, sir.
All right, we discussed this last month. We're adding wanting to add a definition to a waterfront lot. There's going to be some text amendments to the zoning ordinance. In order to do that, we also need to change some of the definitions of other lots to help provide clarity and prevent conflicting descriptions. Staff is proposing the following amendments. To front lot line, we're going to make that definition on an interior lot, this lot line abutting a right-of-way. On a corner lot, the shorter lot line abutting a right-of-way. On a through lot, the lot line abutting the right-of-way, providing the primary means of access to the lot. On a flag lot, the interior lot line most parallel to and nearest the right-of-way from which access is obtained, or on a waterfront lot, the lot line that is abutting the water. The next text amendment is to the front yard. We are deleting the words right-of-way line and changing it to front lot line to keep in context with the changes to the front lot line definition. We also deleted a small excerpt that referenced where a waterfront lot yard is, since we're adding a waterfront lot definition. That suffices that. For the frontage definition, again, we're deleting the right-of-way wording and exchanging that for front lot line. And rear yard, we are deleting the word rear and adding, and then in a different sentence, adding the word yard, just to help clear up that definition from some conflicting things that we've had before. And then we're adding a definition to waterfront lot. Its definition is any lot or parcel adjacent to Mobile Bay. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? This is a public hearing, isn't it? I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? If not, I shall close the public hearing. Mike, would you like to know what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers definition of a commercially navigable water
I came here with that thought in mind, actually.
I bet you did. Under 95 codified under 33 CFR 329, the definition of commercially navigable water by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who my dad happened to work for, I should say, and my father-in-law. So neither one of them are ever wrong, so this has to be right.
Absolutely.
Commercially navigable waters are waters subject to the ebb and the flow of tide. So I love everything y'all have done here. I would just like to switch a waterfront lot from any lot or parcel adjacent to Mobile Bay to any lot adjacent to commercially navigable waters.
Yes, sir. So that was
we could just skip the Corps of Engineers definition and just say adjacent to any water subject to the ebb and flow of the tide, which would basically include the Mobile Bay, which you want, and then it would include you know, the lower portions of Fly Creek and, you know, all those portions that are low enough to have a tidal, you know, switch, and then when you start getting up into the streams, you know, then you no longer have the tide, so it would switch back.
So we kept it at Mobile Bay. That's where we get the most drawn interest on what a waterfront lot is, where it is. Really the only city property or city, there's not that much property that is on another body of water that is affected by the ebb and tide. You got Fish River, our planning jurisdiction does go out, you know, to Fish River.
Well, you've got Fish River, Weeks Bay, you've got Cowpen Creek, you've got parts of Rock Creek, you've got Bailey's Creek, you've got,
But,
you know, you've got 16.
but here's the problem. Along all of your creeks and your rivers, the back, what we all that grew up on the bay think of as the backyard is actually the yard that fronts the water. The front of the house fronts the highway, fronts the street. Only on Mobile Bay does the front of the house face the bay. When you get down, is that, am I not right, Hyla?
Yes.
And I've been at the city since August, so I can say just for the time that I've been here, I've never had a citizen approach me about the front of their lot being on the water on anywhere besides Mobile Bay.
Go to Rock, just as prime example, real close. Go to Fly Creek or Rock Creek. Every house there, the backyard fronts the water.
Right.
Front yard fronts the street.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, you're right.
We've drawn from other staff members' just experience and where we've had citizens come up and either have concerns or want to put structures. What this helps to do is address where a structure can be placed. Currently, if you live on Mobile Bay, our ordinance states that you must put an accessory structure behind the rear principal line, which puts it behind the rear line and Mobile Bay. This now puts it in the order of where, you know, the common terminology of when you live on Mobile Bay, your front of your house is on the bay side. So now this kind of concretes that in where it's been a kind of a known deal. That's what it's supposed to be, but we've never had a clear definition. Like I said, before we had, the only reference was that for the purpose of this ordinance, the front yard of waterfront lots is the yard that abuts the public right-of-way, regardless of the orientation or design of the structure. So we're now able to clear that up. Now, if you guys
I'm kind
are
of confused. I just need to ask a question real quick. So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
we were on Seacliff Drive and we were backing up to Fly Creek, where would that accessory dwelling need to be? On the creek side or the road side?
the creek side.
Creek side.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. But if we're on Mobile Bay.
And if you were on the Fly Creek side and you wanted to put it on the creek side and it was by navigable waters, you would not be allowed to. It would have to go behind the rear building line, which would be on the other side, closer to the actual road right away.
Which is how people would want it on Fish River as well. I mean, I don't think in Fish River, people are gonna be happy about putting their, you know, mother-in-law shacks between your house.
Except for this is in the zoning
This is-
ordinance, so it won't apply
It's
to
not-
anybody outside of city limits.
This is only areas that are zoned R1, R2 areas.
This
If
will
you're
only be
unzoned, then
inside city
this
limits.
doesn't have any bearing on you. I mean, there's several lots along Mobile Bay that are zoned, unzoned, zoned, unzoned, zoned. So really, this
Fish
is only,
River won't be affected.
we don't have any
We
areas
don't
zoned
even
on
issue
Fish River.
permits out there, for the most part now.
Okay. Okay. I'll go with the group. I'll call for a motion.
But we have to include the ebb and flow, correct? Or
No, we don't have to. That was my suggestion, and everybody's telling me I'm stupid. And, you know, my wife's out of
Nobody
town,
said
so I
that out
haven't been
loud.
told I'm stupid in 4 days, so I'm not used to it for the last 4 days, but anyway. No, I'll go with the crowd on that. I kind of like my navigable waters research, but I am a team player.
Staff certainly appreciates the research, and I know who to go to in the future when I need some more.
So what are we saying? If the water rises and you can kayak down it, or if it's low and you can fish and walk in it?
No, they're just
We're saying
just
if it's on Mobile Bay.
Only Mobile Bay. They're
Okay,
nixing
okay.
everything that my
Okay.
suggestion
So
was.
just to make clear, the waterfront lot definition is any lot or parcel adjacent to Mobile Bay.
Okay.
Because y'all, you and Mr. Dias were saying that everywhere else you'd rather have it between the
Well,
creek and...
I mean, when you have a creek front lot, you typically have your accessory dwellings in your backyard. Now, if you're on the bay, you have everything closer to the road because your front yard is the bay. The front
It's
door.
not, it's not yet. Hopefully, it soon will be.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Holly's got one, I know she does.
Do you have a motion, Holly?
I have a motion to approve our zoning text amendment. What is that number? Do we have a number on that?
ZC 1905.
Okay. Yes, ZC 1905.
I have a motion to approve as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. I'm an aye. I'm an aye. All right, the next one, and I didn't do any research on this one, Wayne, so you'll be very happy. Go ahead, sir, M1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you may know, you may recall from some of our past rezoning requests, we had one for Hope Farms, probably, I think, was it January timeframe, where we had a rezoning from M1 to, I believe, B2. There was some concern expressed by the Planning Commission about our M1 properties being depleted in the city. M1 is a light industrial category, and there was some concern expressed by the Planning Commission that we were depleting that, and we need to be looking at that. We also were asked to meet with the City of Fairhope Industrial Development Board, IDB as they're called. We did meet with the IDB, and they did share the same concerns about the M1 property being depleted in the city. We met with them at one of their meetings. I think the minutes were attached in your packet. But they basically suggested they made a suggestion about, I guess, some conditions. And what they approved was this language: the rezoning request should be denied, and the M1 zoning designation in the city ordinance should be revised to include restaurants and bars with specific restrictions of not allowing drive-through service windows. So that was the IDB's recommendation. Our recommendation from staff is as follows. We request that this amendment be passed to allow allow restaurants with associated bars in the M1 district subject to an appeal and special conditions. And what this means is when you have an appeal, in the table of permitted uses, you'll see the table and there'll be a zero. That zero means it's allowed on appeal, and that means it goes to the Zoning Board of Adjustments for a public hearing. The Zoning Board of Adjustments will hold the public hearing and make a decision based on the criteria, which I provided. The last page in your packet for this has the criteria that they would review this by. And also, we also recommended that there are special conditions that would be applied to this, and those special conditions are attached in your packet also. And so those special site requirements, we're calling them, is there be a prohibition of drive-throughs. Restaurants shall not contain a drive-through window or pickup windows. Restaurants must be sit-down style restaurant. And then also, restaurant must be farm-to-table concept with food grown on site, used as ingredients. Food grown on site may be sold to the public. And there was some concern about the airport. Airport's zoned M1, and there is potential of having a restaurant at the airport, and so we did not want that specific requirement as far as the farm-to-table concept to apply to the airport. So we are asking that these requirements not be applied to the airport property. Also, another issue that we have been dealing with, this was necessary for this particular amendment also, is that we've had several requests for a caterer commissary type kitchen where someone cooks food at a location, and a caterer, for example, and they take it somewhere else to serve it. This was the opportunity for us to address that as well. So also in your packet, you'll see a definition that we don't have now that we're proposing for a caterer commissary kitchen, which means any person, entity who operates from a permitted food facility where food is prepared and stored and delivered and or served at an off-premise catered function. Right now, it's the restaurant. I think it's considered restaurants now, so it would fall under the restaurant category. We just want to make sure that was defined about what that is, and so again, that would travel with that restaurant category as well in the M1 district. So again, we recommend approval of this. I think this would alleviate the concerns of the IDB and also the concerns of the Planning Commission by allowing a restaurant and associated bar-type use to be allowed in M1 under certain conditions, which I've stated. And again, we feel like this will appropriately address those concerns and will allow a pending application we've had to follow this route to be approved.
I'll open the public hearing at this time. Anybody in the public wish to speak to this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions for Wayne? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Wayne, yeah, what's the language for the farm-to-table concept? How's that integrated in this?
At one of our previous planning commission meetings, one of the members wanted to make sure that this was not kind of an open-ended blank check for a lot of restaurants, and so the original concept that was made as far as the Hope Farms was it was a kind of a farm. I mean, not completely, but they would grow things on site to use as ingredients at the restaurant, and so that sort of traveled with this. That concept has not been. We don't have a define what that means. I would presume if they're growing things on site, be it herbs or whatever it is, that would have to be used. That would be used there, and also it could be sold from the site as well as wholesale. I think the original concept was they were going to have shipping containers where they're going to grow hydroponically certain things that would be used in that restaurant type business, and so that's where that language came from. But I think the original concept was a hydroponic type concept. Yeah, and that was for the industrial type use as well.
Do we need to try to define that?
I think since it goes to the Board of Adjustments, that it's got a gateway, so
And I agree with the chairman. We did a significant amount of research. That is very difficult to define what that means. I think this is something that I think the Board of Adjustments could use their discretion to make those decisions. Obviously, we've laid out what that would look like, but again, I think, in my opinion, because once you start defining things, sometimes you get to the point where you define things out that you really didn't want to exclude. I think, as Mr. Chairman has mentioned, it might be appropriate for the Board of Adjustments to exercise discretion on a case-by-case basis.
Well, if we're going to do that, why don't we just let them have it, anything they want to present to them as a restaurant and let them decide?
Well, I think that from the discussions we've had with the Planning Commission and with the IDB, there are certain things that they did not want to include. And again, that's where the exclusions are come from, with the drive-throughs and those kind of things.
And that's in there, driving.
So instead of farm to table, we could do something like something produced, it's manufactured on the property.
And that's
just like a industrial.
Right. We don't, and I don't think we have any problem with that. I mean, but you know, I saw some where you had to produce X amount, and so can get very, very technical, which I don't think we're prepared to go to that extent. But if we want to change the language, instead of farm to table, that it be some part of that be produced on site, we don't have any problem with that at all. If that's what the Planning Commission wishes.
Does this mean the Fairhope Brewer can start serving food?
They got to produce something besides the beer.
They do. They produce beer.
That's their ABC license, why they can't have food there.
But if that language wants to be removed and just say, instead of farm to table concept, we'll just say that some part of that has to be produced on site. We have no problem doing that. We can make that change. If it's based on the motion tonight, we can make that change as it moves forward through the process.
I think that's easier.
Okay.
I think we could remove that, because if we remove it, it cleans up the district hall, and it also cleans up the warehouse, which if we don't remove that, then district hall and warehouse are really in violation of the ordinance.
Well, the district hall and warehouse, they're in the medical overlay, and the medical overlay specifically allows that kind of restaurant based on the Board of Adjustment. So it can get complicated. That's what I'm saying. It can get really complicated if we're not careful, but I believe
we're stretching.
Yeah.
They're producing coffee in the back, right?
I mean, that's not a...
That's what I said. That's what the comment I had was that they were producing coffee.
But they're not. That's a shared tenancy. And I just think we could clean up a zoning issue if we just simply remove that farm to table.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, we have no problem with that.
So I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we accept it with removing the farm to table and Do we need to put another verbiage in there, or can y'all work with something that's something produced?
Well, we mentioned earlier that some part of that has to be produced on site to be used in the restaurant. We can do that. If you want to leave it open-ended, we can do that as well. I don't think that's for me, it's not a deal killer either way. Yeah, so we could, if you want to leave it, just leave it off, that's fine. I think we don't have any problem with that.
You could always plant some rosemary out in front of each of the businesses,
Yeah.
sort of like what's in front of Guido's and Daphne.
So we're in, this is, I make a motion to approve ZC 1906, we're on 1906, yes, as staff recommendations.
And that is to remove the from the table.
Farm to
language.
table.
Okay.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Chairman, can I make one quick comment?
Sir.
We're going through a lot of amendments here, and I just want to make, and I'm sure you all know this, the zoning ordinance allows 3 methods to initiate amendments to the zoning ordinance. The first method is through the planning director, the second method is through the planning commission, the third method is through the city council. So any of those 3 bodies can make recommendations to initiate a change to the zoning ordinance. And so if there's things that this planning commission would like us to see change, I mean, obviously that's something that would require a motion to be made, but if there's things that you want us to look at, we'll be glad to do that, and it would have to go through the normal process. You would initiate an amendment, we would prepare it, bring it back for a public hearing, and then obviously the final decision goes to the city council for approval. To make sure everybody knows that's how the process works.
I appreciate your work getting with the industrial group and coming together with something that's as progressive for us.
Yeah, I think it's a concern. I mean, there was a concern that we are depleting some of the existing M1 property we have in the city, and that's their job, is to look out for that. And I appreciate their concern and their suggestions as far as that goes. And so I think that was a good meeting, and we had a good meeting with them and had a good dialogue about industrial zoning in general in the city.
Well, it's nice that it goes to the Board of Adjustments, because sometimes, restaurants wouldn't fit in the M1 due to the fact of, how much parking you have there for the restaurant. In the city, you always have overflow, but you get out into some of those M1 districts, and you just got warehouse on warehouse and no real sidewalks, and some of the roads aren't improved all the way. So
Right.
it's nice that there's some oversight there.
I think the oversight is good. It's also a bit of a safety valve, I guess, in some cases, sometimes, you have something that doesn't fit, and for a variety of reasons, and I think the Board of Adjustments can be that safety valve to really apply those standards that we have. And in cases where it may be a detriment, they can make that call. So I think that's a wise way to handle that.
Thank you, Wayne. All right, Mike, you got the next ones. You want to present these all together? I guess the first one's Mini Towers.
So the first one will have to be on its own merit.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of start at back to the staff report. If you look through there was a link to a YouTube video that the City of Fairhope have. We have our DRC meeting, which is our Development Review Committee meeting with all the developers. After we get all the applications in, we have our internal meeting, and then we actually talk with the developers at the time. And Timothy Hawkins is with AT&T is here tonight to answer any questions. So if you watch that video or try to watch any part of that, we went over this case for over an hour, going over each individual site, so a lot more work than what may be presented tonight was actually done for every site that was here. What we have, it's a request for AT&T for an 115211 utility review and approval of the proposed installation of 12 metered mini cell towers in Fairhope's right-of-way and 1 metered mini cell tower at Valana Park. The installation will be at several locations, which is indicated on the map throughout Fairhope. These mini towers or cell antennas will be co-located where possible and new poles installed where co-location is not possible. Up on the screen and included in your packet was an overview of where all the locations are. As you can see, looking at the zoning map, they're really just hitting in dead areas or areas that could use improvement for cell service dictated by AT&T. They're in all types of zoning districts throughout the area. Again, the proposed utility construction is consistent with previously approved AT&T utility review cases that were designed for an overbuild, and for the anticipation of the possible mini cell tower installation. And the comments that are below and that were in your packet are the typical general comments per the City of Fairhope right-of-way projects, and any portions of the right-of-ways affecting Baldwin County or ALDOT will require the permits through the Baldwin County Highway Department or ALDOT. Also want to mention that AT&T has been very cooperative and has attempted to the maximum extent practicable to co-locate their antennas and has been very receptive to all of staff's comments. This is just a quick picture of some existing small cell towers that were approved in 2013, case UR 13.03. There was actually 16 different towers in this total project that were approved. The one on the left side of the screen is behind the Fairhope's Elks Lodge and across from Gambino's in that parking lot there. On the right side, the intersection of Cliff Drive and Mobile Street leading down to the pier. So there's already these mini cell phone towers are already already in Fairhope. The next pictures, these are some example photos. I wanted to include the ones previous and the ones that possibly go up. There's quite a significant difference in detail and design in these structures. They're a lot slimmer. Their equipment boxes are a lot more confined. So they're not the big conglomerate that you saw before. And they do come in different styles, different colors to try to best match the possible surroundings. I have site descriptions and locations for the 13 of them. I will go over those and I'll put a map up on the screen numbering each site. It's also follow along in your packet and I'll go through each site. If you have any questions or comments about any of them, please stop me and let me know. The first site number 1 is at Gayfer Court. It's a co-location on an existing utility pole near a property corner between two houses. And the equipment and antenna is to be brown in color to blend in with the surroundings. Site number 2 is on Section Street and Oak Avenue. Its equipment and antenna will be the same color, green, as the pole to blend in with the surroundings. Site number 3 is going to be the replacement of an existing light on the south side of Fairhope Avenue that's heading down towards the pier. The new light pole is to be decorative and black in color, and it must meet the electrical superintendent's requirements. Site number 4 is a co-location on an existing utility pole on the west side of South Mobile Street, north of the American Legion. The equipment and antenna is to be brown in color to blend in with the surroundings. Site number 5 is another co-location on an existing utility pole at the end of Kumquat Street. The equipment and antenna to be brown in color to blend in with the surroundings. Site number 6 is a new metal pole on Booth Road, south of Spring Run Drive. There was no co-lake possible in that area. The pole and equipment to be brown in color. Site number 7 is a new metal pole at Autumn Drive and Greeno Road. There was no co-lake possible here as well, and that pole and equipment and antenna is to be black in color. Site number 8 is a replacement of an existing light at the entrance to Spring Lake subdivision. The new light pole is to be decorative and black in color, and again must meet the electrical superintendent's requirements. Site number 9 is a new metal pole on South Section Street in front of the City Services Public Utilities property where our offices are located. There's no co-locate possible there. The pole equipment and antenna is to be tan in color to blend in with the surroundings. Site number 10 is a co-locate on the light pole at Valana Park near the stadium entrance. Its equipment and antenna is to be galvanized or silver to blend with the surroundings. And also to note for this particular site, we'll need to go to the city council as it's not in a right-of-way, it's actually on city property. So there will have to be a type of lease agreement signed. We were going to meet with Jack Burrell later this week, but our schedule was kind of conflicted and we weren't able to get on that, but we're fully scheduled for the April 8th meeting to present that to council. Council Brown, you'll hear that when we get there. It goes to structure number 13, 11, and 12 that they presented to us. We're actually not in our right-of-ways and not in our jurisdiction, so they've been taken off and moved to the county. Site number 13 is a new metal pole on Oakwood Avenue at the rear of River Oak subdivision on the corner of a common area. There was no co-locate possible. The pole equipment and antenna is to be black in color. Structure number 14 is a co-location on the existing utility pole on the northwest corner of Ingleside and Fairhope Avenue. This equipment and antenna to be brown in color to blend in with the surroundings. Location number 15 is a new metal pole on Morphy Avenue at the southeast corner of the Dollar General property. No locate was possible there, and the pole equipment and antenna is to be black in color. And again, the same general comments, the proposed utility instructions that were within the right-of-way that we have, as I mentioned, if they fall in ours right-of-way, it'll be through our permitting department, and then if they go through Baldwin County or state roads, go through those. The no open trenches and directional boring be used in sensitive areas. As typical for our underground run fiber optics, we included it here as a catch-all because they will have to, some of the utility reviews that have been approved are going to be running in some of these areas to run it, and there may be small jobs to get the power or fiber optics to these. And then the site shall apply with all state and federal and local requirements. Staff's recommendation is approval of Utility Review 1908, conditional upon the following: that the applicant shall follow the general comments related to the utility work as stated above. Applicant and applicant's contractor shall follow the right-of-way installation, permitting, and work procedures document provided by the building official. The applicant shall follow the design and color for each site dictated by staff in the site description and location section of the staff report. The applicant is responsible for any aid to construction costs for the new utility poles needed to accommodate a co-locate. And lastly, the city of Fairhope reserves the rights to modify or add requirements such as, but not limited to, cut sheets of proposed poles or fixtures, additional drawings, site locations, design, colors, etc. And again, just a blurb at the bottom saying that we conducted the DRC meeting. If you got some spare time and you want to go over that meeting, it's a thrill. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And again, as I said, Tim Hawkins is here with AT&T.
Well, I see number 10 is the northmost. Do you think that one could be slid a little bit further north?
You have to get with AT&T about that.
I was thinking like Tommy John Earl Road, about 5 miles down Tommy John Earl Road up in Blackshear. Just, about 50 miles north where my hunt camp is, would be kind of nice. You just, other than just slide 10 up there and everything else looks good. In seriousness, any questions about these? If not, I will entertain a motion. AT&T is kind enough to have had a person sit through this entire lengthy meeting, and thank you for being here, just in case.
I'll make a motion for UR 1908 to be approved by staff recommendation and all the verbiage.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, passes unanimously.
All right. This next one is by MediaCom, and then the rest are by AT&T. So I'll do this one since it's a different applicant on its own, and then the rest we can do like we've done in the past, and we'll vote on them separately. This is utility review for MediaCom, case 19.09. It's a proposed underground installation of approximately 1,831 feet of linear feet of TB cable with conduit through the city of Fairhope's right-of-ways. The installation will be a directional bore in the River Station subdivision, Phase 2. There will be 11 new pedestals falling in line with power pedestals that are currently existing. And there's a aerial and a zoning map of where that is to take place. And staff's recommendation is that the applicant shall follow the general comments related to the utility work as stated above and in the staff report. And the applicant and applicant's contractor shall follow the right-of-way installation, permitting, and work procedures document provided by the building official. Any questions?
No questions from me. I'll accept a motion. I assume the staff doesn't have any issues.
Go ahead, Holly, you're up.
I make a motion to accept UR 1909 with approval with the conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any further? Any opposed say nay.
All right, the next three are for AT&T, 19.10, 19.11, and 19.12. There is one conditional of approval that is different for one of those, and I will point that out when we get to it. For AT&T 19.10, it's the installation of approximately 885 linear feet of two 1.125-inch HDPE conduits with fiber optic cable running through it, with a description of where it's going to be running below. The project will require the installation of two 30-inch by 48-inch flush-to-grade handholds in the sidewalk on South Church Street, as indicated on the drawings provided. There is an aerial showing where the work will take place, and this one actually has an extra approval, condition of approval, and that's that the proposed handholds that are in the sidewalk on South Church Street must be relocated outside of the sidewalk or provide supporting documentation that the vaults are ADA compliant. Speaking with Eric Cortinas, the building official, Richard Johnson, this would need, for them to stay in the sidewalk, must show proof that they are ADA compliant or move those outside of the sidewalk area.
Okay.
The other conditions that they must follow the related utility work as above and follow the right-of-way installation, permitting, and work procedures given by the building official.
All right, do I have a motion for UR 1910?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Put Charles Johnson down at the second. And any further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right.
Next case is for AT&T, case UR 19.11. This is for the proposed underground installation of approximately 1,437 linear feet of fiber optic cable within city Fairhope right-of-way. The installation will be a directional bore of two 1.25-inch HDPE conduits along the east side of South Ingleside Street. This project will require the installation of three 30-inch by 48-inch flush-to-grade handholds as indicated on the drawings provided. On the screen is the aerial and the zoning map where it's going to take place. The comments are the same. Recommendation is the same. The next case is UR 19.12. This is a proposed underground installation of approximately 1,564 linear feet of fiber optic cable within the city right-of-way, and this will be a directional bore along Mershon Street. This project will require the installation of one 30-inch by 48-inch flush-to-grade handhold as indicated on the drawings provided. The recommendation that is the same as the previous one, that the applicant shall follow the general comments and that must follow the right-of-way installation, permitting, and work procedures by the building official. Now, that was 1910 and 1911 and 1912 for you to vote on. And any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve UR 1911 and UR 1912. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
I have a question.
Okay?
When do you leave, Wayne?
As soon as the meeting's over.
Couple weeks.
Are you leaving too? When?
Couple weeks.
You won't be at the next meeting?
I'll be back. I'm going to help with the Green Road overlay, so I'll be back for that.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask about.
When is that?
Right now, it's not. We're not ready to bring that forward yet. We're probably looking at May or June. We might have it ready for May. I think we'll probably have it ready for May. We're still working on some of the details of that.
When do you officially leave the city?
Originally the 8th, but I pushed it back a week. Just trying to get some things wrapped up before I leave.
This is my...
Personally, for the time that I had spent with you at the county and now at the city, thank you.
I appreciate
your
it.
time and
Absolutely.
you've done a magnificent job.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. And again, this is a great city, and you know, for me, it's just a matter of just kind of trying to move to the, you know, just a career progression that typically happens. You don't see many old planning directors, and so I'm getting old, so I guess I got to get out of that role. So
Yeah, well.
but I appreciate it.
And I owe you something too, don't I? An apology.
What do you owe me? I don't know. But I've enjoyed it, and you have a great bunch. I've enjoyed working with Lee and everybody, Holly and everybody else. It's been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed it. And I mean, this, great place, great city. At the county, I had some dealings with the city in those days, not a lot, but I've had a lot more interaction, obviously, working here, and it's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed it, got a great staff. I think good things are happening, and I think I see good things going in the future as well. So I'm just glad I was able to be a small part of that, and so it's been an honor for me to serve.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I have one more question.
Yes.
What's your program?
This is my last meeting under my appointment from Mayor Cant, so I will continue to serve until either Mayor Wilson reappoints me or until she appoints someone in my place. So one thing, if she does reappoint me and someone in my place, I'd really like to be a part of the Greeno Road overlay, because I feel like that's kind of unfinished business. I've been on this board for 18 years, and that has been a thorn in my shoe for 18 years. The argument of, whether or not that should be commercial or residential, and what people really are concerned about is just not having it look like Hamburger Alley, or Airport Boulevard. So that's, one thing I'd really like to be involved with.
What do you, I'm just trying to understand, but what do you mean for her to appoint someone in your place? You just talking about the fill of planning commission vacancy?
Yes, is whenever when you're appointed for a 6-year term. Right. And then you serve until when your 6 years is up, you serve until someone's appointed in your place. So it's just, the mayor's discretion of whether or not she wants to appoint you or someone else and go a different direction.
You'll maybe still be with us.
Probably a few more meetings, or I don't know, maybe another 6 years. Just we'll see. If I'm not reappointed, I'll come back and tell you goodbye. All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, aye. Aye.